Hello friends, I hope you are well. On this occasion, I bring you a video with the book Prophecies and Signs in Donald Trump, an audiobook. Before starting the reading, I ask you to like it, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel below. I will start reading the book Prophecies and Signs in Donald Trump, written by J.P. Nuneretz, copyright 2023 Yahseph Nuneretz, all rights reserved. Thanks. I want to thank my Elohim Malish Ruach codes for the wisdom and understanding that he has given me. Allow myself to be an instrument in your hands, and for helping me to imitate and be like Yahseph. I want every day that passes to continue presenting my body as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasant, and to continue being a daily cult with the understanding and reason to continue in holiness, purity, perfection, integrity, and that whatever I need, my Elohim Malchazedek completes me and seals me, and that my Elohim Yahseph erases the sins of the book of rebellions and the sins of the book of memories, confirms me in the book of life of the Lamb, cover me with his justice, and that by presenting me to me, Elohim Yahweh, he accepts me as a beloved son. I also thank my great brother in the faith, Juan Bueno, a Dominican who currently resides in the United States, for the contributions that he allows me to have in this work, for his published articles, and his great enthusiasm for the prophecies and connections of the sanctuary. I pray that the blessing of our Elohim and his Messiah continues to rest in the life of my brother Juan, scrutinizing and publishing as he has been doing until now, continuing to prepare for the glorious encounter with the imminent second coming of Yahseph in the reality of the Sukkot festival in 2030, my dear brother Juan. Well, I offer my recognition to the ministry that he is developing, and I pray that nothing and no one spoils the missionary work that he carries out through social networks. Keep going. The reward is not expected from any man. We expect the reward from Yahseph. Although the world criticizes, contempt makes our lives impossible, we do not need to faint, because our trust and faith must remain firm in Yahseph. Well, he is the target and the goal to achieve that our gaze remains firm in him. I am very grateful to my brother in faith, Juan Bueno. I thank our Elohim Yahseph for having been able to meet us through social networks. Well, it was thanks to that platform that we have been able to meet each other and share different experiences. A big hug from a distance. For my brother Juan Bueno dedication, I dedicate this work to all lovers of prophecies. My most sincere motive is to be able to reach each of you through those final prophetic moments. Each day that passes, they motivate me more and more. The prophecies, I am very grateful to Yahseph and the RAC codes for having called me to the prophetic ministry. I have received more than 400 revelations that I have been able to share in articles and books. I look forward to the future, and I prepare every day to face it with determination, courage, power, and authority. I cling to the promise that I can do everything in Yahseph, who strengthens me. Of Donald Trump, a leader who has left an indelible mark on the political and social fabric of our nation since the beginning of his term. Intriguing threads of predictions and symbolism were woven, weaving a tapestry captivating that invites us to explore the unknown and the supernatural in its pages, to reveal the enigmas hidden behind the numbers and symbols that marked his time and power. From the most astonishing curiosities to the most revealing prophecies, each chapter will dive into a universe of secrets and revelations that will surprise even the most inveterate skeptics. We will discover how history, faith, and destiny are intertwined in a cosmic ballet, creating a canvas of signs that seem to have been written in the stars, from prophecies that were hatched long before his rise to power to surprising events that occurred during his presidency. We will embark on a journey through time and space to discover the truth hidden in the lines of the future. The image of the beast and the mysterious number 45 will take on new meaning as we delve into the bowels of this story. What dark and prophetic forces may have been at play during his term, how these signs still reverberate in our current society. This book does not seek to impose beliefs, but incite reflection and questioning of the inexplicable. We will venture through the alleys of the past, present, and future, exploring how destiny is intertwined with human decisions and how signs from the past can shed light on our path forward. Enter this journey of discovery and revelation. Prepare to challenge your preconceptions, and be amazed by the intricate dance between the prophetic and the political. Immerse yourself in the enigma of prophecies and signs in Donald Trump, an unfathomable chapter in the great book of history. The truth is within our reach, and it only takes a leap of faith to enter the vastness of the unknown. Forward, intrepid reader, together we will explore a world where prophecies take shape and signs dance to the rhythm of reality. The future awaits us, and this book is just the beginning of our journey. Welcome to Prophecies and Signs in Donald Trump, revealing the threads of destiny. Introduction. The prophecies will never go out of style. Every human being is expectant to know the future. It is something innate that we carry in our ADN. The prophecies, studied and scrutinized, delicately awaken us to the present reality and prepare us to face the future with more security and have better preparation for the events that we must face. We should not fear the future when we know the prophetic itinerary. When the prophecies are not known, we live in the uncertainty of what will happen. What will happen today? We are living the last years of the history of sin because we live in the year 5992. We are 7 years and a few months away from completing the 6,000 years of the history of sin, which end on Tisri 21 of the year 2030. In this work, I present prophecy and signs for Donald Trump as president number 45 in the past, and as president number 47 in the near future. I have been able to connect him in his first term as a lamb. In his second term, we will see him speaking as a dragon. I present multiple signs that are fulfilled in Donald Trump. Scrutinize prophetic. You will see later the amazing fulfillment of this next president and how the prophetic patterns are fulfilled in him. It is my interest that this work comes out before Donald Trump becomes president. I have put a special interest in this work, and I hope with the help of Elohim that when it is read and studied, many people will wake up to reality and make decisions for eternal life. For time is short, and the salvation of many souls is still at stake. Reader of this work, that there may be a spiritual awakening in each of us, and that we can take advantage of the short time that we have. The end of everything is closer than ever thanks to the prophetic reality of the present truth that we live. We can contemplate the hybrid character that Donald Trump presents with kings of the past and who had a prophetic role in their times. The hybrid character of Donald Trump with some kings is one believes himself united as the king was, two believes himself a great conqueror as was King Nebuchadnezzar, 3 believes himself to be the richest as King Ahasuerus was, 4 believes himself with religious power as was the King Antiochus Epiphanes, 5 has a character of arrogant pride, arrogance, as is the character of Satan. Job 41 verse 34. Donald Trump is one of the men who are not satisfied with what he has. He wants to have complete power to impose his will. He thirsts to have total power. This is what happens to most of the rich. That's why Joshua Mosek said how difficult it is for a rich man to inherit the kingdom of heaven, because the rich are not satisfied with what they have, but every day they want more and more. They become selfish, greedy misers. What interests them is to be recognized as great celebrities who pay homage to them. They always long to be in the great human hierarchies and to make themselves known as renowned people. They like their achievements to be valued by everyone. Their selfishness is so great that they have no time left to dedicate themselves to the preparation of eternal life. They like everything material. The spiritual is of little value to them. For this reason, we can today appreciate the character of Donald Trump as a hybrid character with characteristics of several kings who existed in ancient times. And yet we see a Donald Trump thirsty for power. Very soon, we will see the reality of this next President 47 in all its magnitude. The world will be able to see that Donald Trump will be the most evil, bloodthirsty, and cruel president that we are going to have. And there is someone who gets in his way because he will not respect God. Anyone will believe he has divine attributes. How some monarchs pretended to have power, wealth, fame really separate man from Elohim. Very soon, too soon, we will see the reality of this next president ruling as the dictator of the world, as a modern emperor who will do and undo at his will. We are about to see a version of the image of the beast in full development, for he will travel the same path that the beast has taken and will make the United States form the complete image of the beast. And with the enactment of the Sunday law, he will revive the second papal supremacy already prophesied in Revelation 1:33 verse 17. The final prophetic events will be rapid 2024 to 2030. In that period, we will see the final reality and the fulfillment of all the events already revealed being fulfilled in that short time that we really have left. Every student of the prophecies who, like the times, understands that there is no more time and that we will see the prophecies in their fulfillment one after another because we had to live this final stage where everything will pass quickly. No, they will not be able to hide the prophetic reality that is being fulfilled before them. There is a short time when the Raka will cease his strange work. He will convince of justice, judgment, and sin, where many will be awakened and some will understand and accept the final call. They will prepare at the last moment and add to the list of the last martyrs who are missing for the closing of total grace to the world. Today we live in the times of the patriarch Noah. He preached the end of the world with a date, and many called him a crazy extremist fanatic. He believed, but he and his family believed. They prepared themselves and were saved. The same thing is happening with this servant. I preached the prophetic events that my Elohim has given me. Yasuji, my Elohim. Most of them also criticize me. They call me crazy, a fanatical extremist, etc. But I don't pay attention to them. The ministry didn't give it to me. No man or organization was in Swami who called me to be a prophet of the workers of the 11th hour from 2015 to 2030, and I continue to go regardless of whether they believe or not. My job is to announce the one who convinces is my Elohim, the RAC codes. I want to be a winner for the honor and glory of Elohim. I behaved like an ambassador of the New Jerusalem, and I clung to the promise that with Yahweh Mejah I can do everything. I have nothing to fear, because I am more than a winner, because Yahseph is the one who strengthens me. This work, the prophecies and signs of Donald Trump, I hope will motivate and inspire you to review and relearn the final prophecies. Each person in general presents an intense interest in knowing the future. This work will open interest in preparing us to live in life eternal, that we can make a 180-degree turn and be able to change bad habits, that we live a life of complete holiness. Because without holiness, no one will be able to see Elohim. With sincere love for all readers of this work, Chapter 1, President number 45. Welcome to this fascinating chapter, where we will explore the life and legacy of Donald John Trump, who held the presidency of the United States from January 20th, 2017 to January 20th, 2021. Born on June 14th, 1946 in New York, Donald Trump grew up in the New York borough of Queens in a place called Jamaica after earning his bachelor's degree in economics at the University of Pennsylvania's Wynn School. In 1968, he embarked on a successful business career, taking the reins of the family business Elizabeth Trump and Son, which later became the renowned Trump Organization. Donald Trump stood out as a real estate and construction magnate. His vision and ambition led him to erect numerous office towers, hotels, casinos, and golf courses, building an economic empire that catapulted him to fame and fortune. In addition to his business achievements, he was also linked to the world of entertainment. He was the main shareholder of the Mesu and Mess Un Broso beauty pageants from 1996 to 2015 and participated in the NBC reality show The Lerns that gave him greater media visibility. His foray into politics was a surprise to many. In 2000, he sought the presidential nomination of the Mixed Party and later considered run as a Republican for the 2012 elections, although he finally chose not to do so. However, in June 2015, he officially announced his candidacy for the 2016 elections, standing out among the 17 Republican candidates and generating immense national and international interest. The 2016 presidential campaign was historic and intense despite losing the popular vote by around 3 million votes. Trump won the general election thanks to the Electoral College system. At the age of 70, he assumed office, the presidency of the United States, becoming the oldest president to assume this office in the country. Until that time, his presidency was marked by a series of controversial policies that generated a wide debate in domestic politics. Trump made decisions such as allowing oil extraction in the Alaskan Arctic and approving the Keystone-Naxo pipeline project that received criticism from environmental groups. He also adopted a skeptical stance regarding global warming and carried out restrictive immigration measures such as the travel ban on citizens of certain majority countries Muslim in the field of health. Her handling of the COVID-19 pandemic was the subject of strong criticism. She was accused of minimizing the severity of the pandemic and promoting misinformation, which led to a high rate of unemployment and questions about care, health, and foreign policy. Trump followed a nationalist line called America First that emphasized the American national interest in various agreements and international relations. During his mandate, he withdrew from agreements such as the Trans-Pacific Agreement on Economic Cooperation and the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, and he made controversial decisions regarding the Middle East and North Korea. Likewise, his presidency was marked by investigations and controversies such as the investigation of coordination with Russia in the 2016 election and his impeachment in December 2019 for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, of which he was acquitted by the Senate in February 2020 after his defeat in the 2020 presidential election. Trump refused to recognize the victory of his rival Jovan and his actions before the inauguration of the new president Aaron, a tragic assault on the Capitol without a doubt. The presidency of Donald Trump was one of the most controversial periods in the history of the United States. Through the events that we have explored, we will learn about the complexity of his legacy and how he left a deep mark on the country and the world. Chapter 2: Curious Facts. In the intriguing Chapter 2, we delve into the curious facts surrounding the figure of Donald Trump, revealing aspects that have been the subject of discussion and speculation. These facts at first glance are not hidden and have generated an endless number of amazing interpretations. Donald Trump's genealogy dates back to his great-grandparents Christian Trump and Friedrich Trump, the latter married to Elizabeth Christ. It is also notable that his mother's name is Mary, as is the mother of Yahweh Jesus Christ, and that his father is named after Christ. The presence of parallels in the names is surprising and has a relationship with Elizabeth and a cousin named Juan El Bautista, while Donald Trump also has an aunt named Elizabeth and a cousin named Juan. These coincidences have been the subject of comments for their apparent imitation. A curious line of analysis has led some to consider Donald Trump as a kind of Antichrist copy in the United States, suggesting that he could harbor signs similar to those of his supposed Roman original. This prophetic interpretation indicates that an individual with anti-Christian characteristics was exalted in the final part of the Times, promoting a day of rest Sunday law that subordinates the creature above its creator. A fascinating comparison is established with Yahweh, whom Lucifer tempted in the desert using his word to deceive him. It is proposed that the Antichrist in North America would follow a similar pattern, presenting himself as a defender of the religious system as Yahweh and usurping its functions with theatricality. This figure would be located in the Church of Elohim, deceiving them as a worshiper of pagan deities linked to the sun. The conjectures around the candidates who fill this profile have led to reflection on the 2024 elections. The presence of extraordinary signs around Donald Trump, along with his self-proclamation as the chosen one, has generated an unprecedented prophetic atmosphere. There has been talk of nuclear threats, challenges of self-control and competence to lead the nation, and various interpretations have been proposed about his role as a supposed suffering or even anointed servant in the religious and supernatural sphere. In this enigmatic equation, it is suggested that Donald Trump is being manipulated by a dark force superior involved in an enemy plan that seeks to obtain an apparent good while hiding a deep evil. The figure of the president is involved in an intrigue worthy of a reality show, with the presence of Lucifer on both sides of the equation. Some argue that the president cannot be alone in questions who will really govern the nation. Ultimately, the signs surrounding Donald Trump, according to some, are unmistakable and could be related to the implementation of the prophecy of Revelation 131:1, which involves a Sunday closing law linked to a deity called Apollyon, known as the sun god, as mentioned in Revelation 9 verse 11. Now those are the signs that are on the ground. However, the sovereign and the one who has the power is Yahweh of hosts. Since he removes and sets kings, it is not for fear of making a mistake that I see a persecutor of the final remnant that without conscious analysis comes out like a ferocious wolf to attack every argument without exploring or investigating what is said in depth, but with a desire to discard without reading the evidence, but believes doing so based on the respect that Yahweh is Yahweh, and often raises or postpones judgments for the good of its people. Information about gematria, already used by Jewish scholars long before the Roman Empire and confirmed today by the final remnant workers of the 11th hour 2015 at 2030. Gematria is a science based on a system of calculation through the assignment of values to the letters that in this case is applied to the Hebrew alphabet. In Revelation 13:18, there is an exhortation to calculate the number of the beast, which is the number of man, and its number is 666. We have all made the numerical assignment to the Latin or Roman alphabet to calculate the papal Roman system by its title that lay in its crown in centuries of the Middle Ages, the famous bicarb Philidii, among other names. This system of assigning values was extended to other alphabets and is called Simple English Gematria, etc. Gematria originated as a Babylonian Greek system of alphanumeric or cipher code that was later adopted in Jewish culture throughout history. Similar systems have been used in other languages and cultures, such as the Greek isopa. Similar numerological speculations already existed in the Pythagorean school. At first, the isopa is considered the precursor of gematria. Some scholars speculate with the possibility that gematria is codified in the Hebrew Bible, Tanakh, or Old Testament. In Christianity, Israel, not the wing, that it is not out of the question that this technique was already known in the biblical period and was used specifically in religious contexts, and has hypothesized that the fact that the representation of the numerical values of letters is not demonstrated in mundane use in ancient Israel before the Hellenistic period could point that this was in its beginnings a secret knowledge of the sacred scriptures that was maintained in closed circles. For his part, Victor Yurevit points out some numerological principles in the organization of the Book of Proverbs and demonstrates that gematria has Mesopotamian precedents. Stephen J. Lieberman points out that we must admit that it is possible that such techniques will be used in the biblical texts. The means were available, and if there was a willingness to do so, it would certainly have been possible to introduce hidden messages into the Bible. ISO. It was announced by a guiding star that the wise kings of the East followed the self-proclaimed Donald Trump. They are announcing it. The Pad Exodius and the Pad's blood moons. The true Messiah came preceded by signs. The false Messiah also comes preceded by signs. Grant us a copy that is what the chosen one is, the one who installs the Hemer Apono Sunday in the United States. Of the sun god Apollos, APOC 911, that Sunday law is the mark that revives the Antichrist Roman, which becomes the eighth and final kingdom prophesied in Revelation 17:11 and takes its literal 3.5 years to end 2027 to 2030. Revelation 13 verse 5. If Revelation 13 verse 5 predicts a second papal supremacy of 42 months in a second round in collaboration with the chosen one to the east to settle, it has to take a time copy 24 to 2027 because it is an Antichrist or image of the next, and at that time copy that it is also 3.5 years that he promulgates the Blue Laws. Sunday laws, the creed of Apollo or Apollon, and Trump as Rocky. Trump places an image as Rocky, follows the allusion to Apollon or Apollo, the god Apollon or angel of the abyss, the destroyer of Revelation 9 verse 11. On December 14th, 2020, Monday, Child announces the assignment of his first administration in the United States on a Monday in the new moon phase and in the middle of an X solar in the North American Southeast. I reiterate, do not rule me out a priori without checking the signs that there is a dark, sinister mind scheming, and the worst thing is that Protestantism and many Adventists follow the mantra, it is not politics, neither against this nor in favor of that, or vice versa. They are signs that show that there is a strong dish in the prophetic continuity with the CL as a token for the finals. The True World Series is approaching another addition to the signs of the Mon Shield with the new moons and the full moons prior to the total eclipse of the sun on August 21st, 2017. The full moon occurred on Monday, August 7th. 2017, the new moon occurred later in August, the Monday, August 7th, 2017 on April 8th. 2024 is the return of the eclipse of the god Apollon of Revelation 9:11 falls precisely on a Mund or Mondeo Monday. To follow the coherence of the pattern established by the prophetic signs here is a chilling fact is the great total eclipse of the sun guided by the god Apollon, who has a commission of high prophetic impact in accordance with the size of his signal, without parallel, inescapable, incontestable, and irrefutable for the man-child with that nickname. But you already know who he is or it. Happened the first time on August 21st, 2017. The Truth of the Coronara was launched by the Mon Chill on December 14th, 2020 during a solar eclipse American that affected the part of the southeast between the total eclipse of the sun on August 21st and that next southeastern solar eclipse, plus the medical technology that there are 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days total of time since the solar eclipse guided by the Apollon sun god of Revelation 9:11, the god of the Mon shield, who has assigned him. Tremendous task for the end of time, hindering the final process of judgment for the living of Yahseph in the medieval Little Horn type sky on August 21st, 2017 at April 8th, 2024. There are 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days that American total eclipse covered a band that covered a contiguous space of the United States from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean on April 8th. 2024 falls in the new moon phase. In this phase, the moon is positioned between the sun and the earth and is at 0% illumination, so that it is not visible to us from the sky. Coincident data from the Mon shield guided by God Apollon Apollos from Revelation 9:11. Look at the chapter and verse and find it regarding the return of the eclipse guide of God himself on April 8th, 2024. So 7 months of the next North American elections from April 8th, 2024 to June 14th. 2024 birth date of Mon child. There are 66 days until June 13th, not including his birthday, and from the day of his birthday to the summer solstice on June 21st. 2024 are 6 days without counting the 21st, which signs a chain of 666 inscribed from the eclipse of the god support until the birthday of Mon child, and the beginning of the most splendid solar period of the year. Donald Trump has a hidden love affair with King Apollon, the angel of the abyss. Revelation 9 verse 11, and it will soon be declared in public when the angel of the abyss is rated on the planet Abyss called support did not give Sun link of the Manchi. There is a propaganda antechamber in all the media that the UFO are about to be launched in raid or entangled in the planet. A loud noise from Since You Get Up, and now almost made official by NASA, the U.S. Department of Defense. Some devices that have detected constant presences, sightings, pilots from F-22 that have, in short, a huge revelation never seen before. A conditioning prior to the coup of collective officialization from the EA to the world that King Apollon of Revelation 9 verse 11. Notice the chapter and the verse and look at what it says. And they have as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon and in Greek is Apollon. Apocalypse 9:11 Arvar 1960. For that king or angel of the abyss supported in executing wonders, he has to find 2 links. 2 friends that he himself has caused lightning to fall on the Vatican, red moons and solar eclipse 2017 to 2024, to 2 characters that belong to the 2 beasts of Revelation 13. Satan continues to do wonders in the administration of Donald Trump and Pope Francis. It is because Satan has chosen them and wants to give them the privilege to fulfill the final part of his plans and come at the precise moment of planetary emergency, offering the most advanced technology with the help of artificial intelligence to the solution to climate changes and the promulgation of the Sunday Law as a solution to the evils that are being seen on the planet, so that if the angel of the abyss, the destroyer, the sun god, the Apollon, who worships the MCH and designated from his birth for a work like the one that is prophetically sniffed in the environment, it is because they want to rob the planet to Yahweh. We will have a trinity of terror, and the only thing missing is to open the portal to those fallen angels. I am going to repeat this date for the eye and making the coincidences on the 2 legs of the tripartite table known not necessarily to support it. 8. Francisco Gu Pope Francis would be the 8th and would be among the 7 since he'd sojourn with Benedict X sharing a yes, but being the 8th when Benedict the Beast also makes a similar copy for the end of time. The 8 presidents are 1. Ronald Reagan, 2. George Bush, 3. Bill Clinton, 4. Bush, Jr. 5. Barack Obama, 6. Donald Trump, 7. Joe Biden, 8. President 91 repeats, Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the 8th. President is the one who promulgates the Sunday law, the law of his God's Son, Apollon, Apocalypse 9:11. The Emperor Trump would be of the 7, he was the 6th, and would become the 8th in a year. 8224 is equal to 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 4 is equal to 8. An extended and expanded interpretation could be applied in the form of a cherem to both the first beast of the sea, the Vatican, and the second beast, the USA, of Revelation 17. This for the mind that has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits, and there are 7 kings. 5 of them have fallen, one is, and the other has not yet come, and when it comes it is necessary that the beast that was and not last a short time. It is also the 8th, and it is from among the 7, and it goes to perdition. And the 10 horns that you have seen are 10 kings who have not yet received the kingdom, but for 1 hour they will receive authority as kings together with the beast. These have the same purpose, and they will give their power and their authority to the beast. They will fight against the Lamb, and the Lamb will defeat them, because he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And those who are with him are called and chosen and faithful. Revelation 17 verses of the 9 to 14. Arvar 1960 HLY Allens to destroy communism and the URS between Ronald Reagan and John Paul I. The convenient alliance. President Reagan and Pope John Pablo said Cold Warriors ape flatly. Rod Allen. University historians and non-academics have long considered the work of President Reagan and Pope John Paul II as a tremendous force in helping to end the Cold War. In 1992, Time magazine cited the relationship as a sacred alliance, a political collaboration of 2 men who, after surviving assassination attempts separated by just 6 weeks, saw their role in global politics as a divine sign to promote the free world and overthrow communism internationally. By the time the President and the Pope met at the Vatican in 1982, the two were privately discussing Cold War politics. They agreed that communism represented a threat to human rights and global stability and had to be confronted. John Paul II and Reagan were clearly aligned in their abhorrence of communism, but they had different main objectives. The Pope sought to introduce democracy in his native Poland, and Reagan was busy with the disintegration of the Soviet Union, so the two world leaders were able to ally themselves. Seventh Kingdom on the prophetic scale, not out of necessity, but out of mutual benefit. It was an alliance of convenience with two government organizations capable of using each other's global power and influence to promote their own political objectives. In fact, the President and the Pope shared information about the Cold War, but never planned or initiated policies together to carry out democratic reforms around the world. My research project focuses on the Washington-Vatican relationship during the Reign years and how the partnership helped defeat communism, with particular attention to the Pope's native Poland as well. Explored the role this alliance has played in the years since Reagan left office by presenting ideas that may contradict what many people have assumed about the relationship between President Reagan and Pope John Paul I. Trump and the future President. 4 plus 5 is equal to 9. President 4 plus 7 4 plus 7 is equal to 11/11. We see that Apollon Diasol is in an effigy on the ceiling of Donald Trump's apartment. He adores that god of Greek mythology, and it makes the reflection of the sun shine throughout the place in gold. The visitor is amazed and impressed when seeing the spectacle. Remember that the statue of Nabucodonosor was in gilded gold, alluding to the sun god. We can also see in our investigative search that he supported Apollos, son of Zeus in Greek mythology. Apart from being the sun god, he had his day. Hemera, Apollon, that speaks of the two beasts. Where is it going? Which chapter and verse search to fit the entire sequence of /11 Apocalypse 9:11 that offers the chosen one that represents destruction, like the fact of Yenner 6 2021 El Caparo H911 that contain that encoding associated with the signal of the game changer. or turning point of the Twin Towers on September 11th, 2001 that implied destruction, revolt, change of a law-abiding democratic Lamb system, and that in his second term he will speak and rule like a dragon. Let's see the text, and we will talk later. And they have as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek is Apollyon. Revelation 91 Arvar 1960. And I heard a voice like a tronti, that voice of Yahweh that John heard like a trumpet, urged that John communicate to the seven churches the message of judgment in Apocalypse 2-3, and that it would come immediately in chapters 4-5. And from then on what there is a book in the hand of the Lamb, who is the only one worthy of judging and opening the seals, to grant the inheritance of salvation to his people of the trumpet of Yahweh as a message to the seven churches to the judgment. Today, there is a similar situation. There is a trumpet from 2024 to 2027, so that the church be prepared for the trial in its final stage march on cap January 6th. 2021 16-2021. Take the last one of the year 2021, accompany it with the first of the month equivalent to January, and make the turn from 6 to 9911. What is the protagonist of that scenario that generated an icing to democracy in America? That is to say, September 1st is a so-end of a democratic system and beginning of a monarchy, the two-horned beast speaking not like lamb, but like a dragon. He is not a politician, although he intervenes because Lucifer has set up a Riado Deo with his chosen Donald Trump, unless the signs are not diverted, because Elohim is the one who removes and sets kings. Daniel 2:21. Right now, if you notice it with discerning Agus Aduz AB kissed eyes, there is a Lucifer reality show set up with an actor chosen by him, Donald Trump, who has him to open the door to his final plot on the premium stage of occultism. There is a candidate chosen by the printed signs in his political development and walk. Monsheld, there is a desperation of the status that wants to establish him right now, and you will see that at any moment later. Unless they are not waiting for the candidate or Monsheld to do so officially later or confirm it, they officially announce the existence by the North American government that the extraterrestrials will enter as guests, or recognizing their existence. They are preparing the ground, the stage to receive him with camaraderie in a short time. You will see that they are waiting for the link to the occult candidate Donald Trump, chosen by that entity of angels, fallen with their leader Lucifer, and who are leading with supernatural signs from their birth, and then explode with the announcement. Check the news every day and you will see that there is a desperate desire to give the announcement that the extraterrestrials, who are nothing more than the satanic hosts with a desire to enter this dimension, and that you will deceive from birth with who the pact is. Why all this spectacularity of wanting to show the existence of UFOs in a pre-2024 election year environment of an occult candidate clearly in the United States? Other curiosities of Donald Trump, Apollon, the destroyer on the roof of the Trump Tower apartment, and they have as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek is Apollyon. Apocalypse 9:11 Arvar 1960. Both the formation of the image of the beast and the judgment for the living must begin almost at the same time, 2024 to 2027. In other words, a character in the United States entering the zone of power to compete with the final ministry of Yahweh in the stage of judgment for the living. Something like Yahseph re-editing his 3.5 years to withdraw or extract his 144,000 to compete in the final race against a union of church and state from the United States that establishes the law of Sunday, closing against the special group or elite that Yah chooses. This topic made harmony with my most recent articles connected to Thessalonians 2:1 tar. Let no one deceive you in any way, because it will not come without first the apostasy comes, and the man of sin is manifested, the son of perdition. The quote shows 3 events: 1, the second coming of Yahweh; 2, the succession of the Antichrist; 3, the apostasy before our Yahweh comes. It is necessary that first here on earth an event occurs that precedes it, the succession of the Antichrist. Before the Antichrist appears, it is necessary that first here on earth an event occurs that precedes it, the apostasy. So the events of this quote have their order: 1, the apostasy; 2, the succession of the Antichrist; 3, the second coming of Yahweh 1 historically, when the apostasy began in the Church of Yahweh historically, we would have to talk about at least the first 3 churches of the apocalypse, so we abbreviate to reach one of the stages of the church where the apostasy Ephesus bar 34 to 100 equal to. In this stage the apostles lived, therefore the teachings of Yahseph were preserved. This church was pure in its doctrines, since the apostles defended the great truths with love and zeal, without lowering the standards. Smyrna bar 100 to 313 equal to. In this stage the church was brutally persecuted to the point of death. Satan tried to exterminate the Christians who stood firm in defense of the truth, without selling it. As a result, a tremendous massacre was unleashed from 303 to 30 by several monarchs, until in that last year Constantine appeared to make way for the next church, Pergamon bar Dion bar 313 in 538. The same as in this stage the church experienced a great apostasy. The great emperor Constantine favored the cause of the church that had been persecuted. Others attribute the year 323. The reason is that Satan could not completely exterminate to the Christians. A better plan would work to weaken the Christian faith and give succession to its purpose. This plan was to make the people of Elohim fall into apostasy through a mixture of paganism with Christianity. This happened when they allowed the Emperor Constantine, who was already showing signs of apparent repentance and belief in Christian doctrines, the opportunity to gradually direct the church in some aspects. This, instead of being something in favor of the faith, ended up introducing teachings contrary to those of Yahweh, and the oppose one of them, and the one that has damaged the faith the most, and will be a reason for decision in the final days on Sunday as the day of the Lord. That is why this church is said to retain the doctrine of Balaam. Balaam sold or negotiated his call to Balak, and every time Balaam went up to the mountain to curse the people of Elohim, only words of blessing came out of his mouth. So Balaam advised Balak that the only way to make the people of Elohim lose divine protection was to endo the apostasy. A party was organized where the people of Elohim participated in fornicating and ended in a terrible idolatry. The steps are the same one in the people of Israel. First, the people were made to fall into apostasy. This event prepared the ground for the succession of the Antichrist, the Moabite gods to whom the people of Israel worshipped the promised land seemed to get further and further away for them. They changed the peace and true tranquility for years of noise, music, dance, new beliefs, and a style of worship that Elohim never ordered to. In the Church of Yahweh, in the stage of the Church of Pergamum, first the church that once maintained a pure doctrine was involved in a series of false teachings with the apparent conversion of Constantine, the worst apostasy and abomination, changing the solemnity of Saturday for Sunday, and this apostasy prepared the ground for the succession of the Antichrist. The apostasy gradually rose, we could say, from the year 313 to 538. It is in the year 538 when that little horn papal Rome ascended the throne with the union of the church and the state, thus beginning a government of blood, the Holy Inquisition. Again, the people of Elohim changed the peace for years of unrest, and as a result of that we are still here, because the apostasy that promoted the succession of the Antichrist will have a final fulfillment before the second coming of Yahweh 3. In the current church, we are seeing the Omega apostasy fulfilled with our own eyes, and this apostasy that we are seeing not only within our church, but in some other denominations, including the popular church, the Catholic system, will give way and impetus for the final succession of the Antichrist. Revelation 13 verse 3 says, I saw one of his heads as if wounded to death, but his mortal wound was healed. And the whole earth marveled in pursuit of the beast. If you notice the following on, the ordination of women had a single purpose, and it was according to several renowned ministers to bring union within the church. Although this did not have approval from Elohim, the Lebke movement has its purpose in order to remain united, and by appealing to love, the standards are lowered to the point of accepting that lifestyle within the church without calling for conversion. The style of worship has its purpose to adhere and retain with the purpose of unity. For this reason, it is necessary not only to lower the standards, but to put aside the spirit of prophecy. Just as others know what follows, they say that whoever does not know their history is condemned to repeat it. I ask what previous event reminds you of these and other practices that we are currently seeing within the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It pains me to see how, despite the fact that Elohim has shown us on more than one occasion the terrible consequences of falling into apostasy, there are still some children who, seeing, do not see, nor hear, do not listen, but who prefer to be on the side of the popularity that, as a final result, will open a path in their ecumenism to the wound of the beast that one day was of death will be healed. What will come after a time will be the union of church and state, and this apostasy will result in the healing of the death wound, and again the papal Rome will take power as the Antichrist, the man of sin, the son of perdition, and that same era will be repeated where they will truly know who the children of Elohim are. Our mission is to proclaim the message of the three angels, to finally see with our own eyes the glorious manifestation of our great Elohim and Savior Yahweh. Revelation chapter 14 verses 6 to 14. Apostasy number 1. Post-earthly ministry of Yahweh. Eruption of Constantine. First pope and succession of the man of sin. 4th century to the 15th century. First fall out of the Protestant body or remnant of that church that did not capitulate, that did not give in, that did not concede to the establishment. 15th century climax with Lucifer and Protestant reform. Containment of that Protestantism and retreat, not conquering the spiritual space of advancement of the work, interrupted its growth. Of regeneration of the truths, those that were trapped in Romanism, the mixture of paganism with Christianity came from Babylon. 10th century to the 19th century. Apostasy or fall. Part 2. Emergence of the Mil Irido bastion from the 19th century to the present with the Adventist movement, with the prophecy of the purification of the sanctuary. Daniel 8:14. Foundation of the Adventist Church in 1863. Elohim gives him the prophetic gift to conclude his work, so that among the simile of the man of sin, Papolos or alter ego in the EA, there must be the last fall or apostasy that swells or joins the previous apostasies, that is, when the current and decadent Adventist leadership fills that regrettable space of apostasy from within Yawaka, or remnant workers from the 11th hour 2015 to 2030 of the remnant, and brings out with the final message to the different members who are scattered in different places or fallen churches the last apostasy, with a man of sin of the type of Donald Trump, to find a scenario where the Adventist leadership, except for some 7,000 who are within, are not committed to the establishment, as did the religious bodies in their different stages exposed above. They continue to cry out and moaning for the abominations that are done in the Adventist Church with the Sunday law. These last faithful of the Adventist Church will leave there and enter the workers of the 11th hour 2015 to 2030 final remnant. We are witnessing the last phase of apostasy corresponding to the church that Elohim took out of the clodic ancient religious bodies, and that prepares the way for the formation of the beast with an alter ego or a copy of the man of sin Nua that is felt in the Protestant religious bodies, and that with the current apostasy in the ecumenical committed leadership of the IASD bringing a remnant of the remnant, with the expected shaking the current Adventist leadership through in the towel. There is no way for a corporation run with commercial criteria to survive in a globalized world. With all the pressures of subjugation and submission, you have to have too much dedication for that. Let's see it with some fun. The seal is broken, breaking the seals on Tuesday, the June 13th, 2023 eve of his 77th birthday, 7 days from the summer solstice, June 21st, 2023 season of the sun that guides him. Observe the amount of money raised and the number of days, 6.6 million in 6 days, 666. Then 10 million in 5 days from his home in New York, including 10,000 in 5 days. 105 is equal to 1 plus 5 is equal to 6. How much money in how much time? Mon Shield, June 14th, 1946. Total blood moon eclipse, tetrad solar eclipse, or 4 blood moons, 2014 to 2015 solar eclipse, 2017, at 70 years, 7 months, 7 days after his inauguration on January 20th, 2017, and 7 more months the appearance of the solar eclipse. 777 Gu 7 solar eclipse from 2017 to 2024. Black triangle towards the right 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, 6 days return of the Mon-Chill eclipse black triangle to the right April 8th, 2024, 7 months from the next North American elections on November 5th, 2024, and 287 days from the next inauguration on January 5th, 2025. That is 7 months and 77 days. 777 today appears before the Florida court on Tuesday, June 13th, with an accusation of 37 charges this birthday. 77 June 14th, 2023. 1946, 7 days from the beginning of the season, when the sun, the summer solstice, is in its greatest splendor. 777. Pay attention, please. The TRTR eclipses, or astronomical signs of the type of Revelation 6:12 to 1 Matthew 24:29 Joel 2:28 to 32, with a distance between them that marks the numerical copyright of Lucifer 666 1 eclipse GPS total solar us August 21st 2017 2 annular solar eclipse Uzak October 14th 2023 3 total eclipse solar us April 8th 2024 4 of the GPS total solar eclipse of August 21st 2017 to the same eclipse in return April 8th 2024 6 years 6 months 6 weeks and 6 days of the annular solar eclipse of October 14th, 2023 to the total eclipse solar return on April 8th. 2024 there are 177 days or 6 months of lunar time, or 29.5 days bar lunar month. The annular solar eclipse is located near the date of the new year of 2024. These 3 eclipses of the sun form the letter Aleph Agra. Follow those ingredients or prophetic signs Esther 1:4. 5 with the prophetic code 187 days. Chapter 3 more signs. The future is revealed before our eyes through an enigmatic prophetic code, a legacy of ancient prophecies that displaced the Christian world, immersed in apostasy. In this intriguing panorama, the overwhelming truth of Esther emerges. Chapter 1 verses 4 to 5, a warning that shakes the contemporary church immersed in a deep apostasy. Omega history repeats itself once again because the other churches have also succumbed to the renunciation of the previous prophetic codes. Let us remember how the Jewish church in the first advent of Yahweh discarded the clear ones prophetic codes presented in Daniel 9:24-27 and turned away in their sad apostasy from Yahweh. If they had properly interpreted and followed these codes without being guided by business and economic interests, they would not have fallen into decline. It is unfortunate to note that history repeats itself once again in the context of medieval Protestantism. At that time, when they were presented with the codes and prophecies of the time, they stubbornly rejected them, even going so far as to discard the relevance of Daniel 88 verse 14. As a consequence, they were tied to the traps of a little horn or Antichrist from the past, which has prevented them from recognizing the real presence of the true Antichrist described in Revelation 13, as well as his twin that operates in North America. It is crucial to overcome prophetic blindness and open our eyes to current events that reveal the true reality prophetic. At this crucial moment in history, we find ourselves in the final phase that corresponds to the fulfillment of the prophetic code of 187 days bar years, leading to the culmination of both stages of the judgment that began in 1844, adding the period from 1844 to 180 days bar years 1844 to 2023, and the next 7 days or years 2024 to 2030. We arrive at the moment in which the planet will close the cycle of 6,000 years of sin on the 21st of Tisri in the year 2030. This date marks the definitive end, and then begins the millennium of rest on earth, a transcendental period that is yet to come. It is imperative pay attention to these signs and prepare ourselves for what is about to happen. The figures and codes presented have a clear purpose to separate the Omega apostasy that prevails in the Christian world, and particularly in Adventism. These codes, such as Daniel 8:14, Daniel 9:24-27, and Daniel 7:25, are closely related and connected to each other as twins of interpretation and to revolutionary conclusions in the Christian field. Its revelation seeks to awaken conscience and discernment in those who are willing to pay attention to these prophetic signs. thus separating the truth from error and calling for a faithful return to the fundamental principles of the faith is a call to stand firm in the true light and understand the divine purpose at this crucial stage in history. It is true that the codes and revelations presented are not easy for Christianity in general to assimilate, even the evangelical world that has many followers of Elohim, but is immersed in the confusion of Babylon, has not yet been reached by this profound understanding. However, I trust that as time progresses, a significant number of people will open their hearts and minds to hear and understand these revealed truths. Those who are willing to receive this divine light will be freed from the churches that have fallen into apostasy and will join the workers of the 11th hour 2015 to 2030 who seek the truth and prepare for the final events of history. In the book of Revelation, we are shown the final action of two world powers, the Vatican, described in Revelation 131 verse 10, and the United States, mentioned in Revelation 131:1. It is important to note that a worldwide decree or ultimatum arises for those who do not obey the Sunday decree, which comes from the spiritual influence of the dragon Satan, this mark of the sun god. The angel of the abyss, also known as Abaddon, as mentioned in Revelation 9 verse 11, it seeks to impose a false day of rest in honor of the creature god who takes the sun as a symbol, thus displacing the Creator. This deceptive decree offers economic power to those who submit to it, and we see that various public figures such as artists, renowned athletes, actors, and politicians have already succumbed to this influence and have subscribed to the pact. The social disorder that we experience today is not a coincidence, but is closely related to these prophetic events. It is essential to be alert and aware of these spiritual traps, since this cosmic conflict is unfolding on a global stage and will affect all of humanity who seek to usurp their place. In the book of Revelation, in chapter 14, we find a crucial message from the three angels that responds to the diabolical ultimatum issued by the two beasts, who are the final actors before the second coming of Yahweh. Books or biographies of the life of each individual from October 22nd, 1844 to October 21st, 2023, as mentioned in Daniel 88 verse 14, are being exhaustively reviewed. This message calls humanity to obey divine law and warns about the existence of a heavenly judgment in full activity. This judgment is a public and contradictory oral process that takes place in heaven, where the books or biographies of the life of each individual from October 22nd, 1844 to October 21st, 2023, as mentioned in Daniel 88 verse 14, are being exhaustively reviewed. It is also revealed to us that there will be a judgment for the living that will occur from 2024 until 2029. This is a crucial truth that must be understood and assimilated by all, since this celestial judgment will determine the eternal destiny of each person. It is imperative that we understand the importance of our conduct and decisions, since we are being called to account for our actions and motivations. We must be prepared for this judgment and seek divine guidance and mercy so that our lives are found just and faithful on that momentous day. In the book of Revelation 14, we are presented with an eternal gospel that proclaims Yahweh as the Savior of humanity, who paid the debt of sin and offers forgiveness to all who believe in his sacrifice. This is the main phase of the salvation process, and in this time of grace, all human beings have access to redemption through faith in Yahweh, in addition to the message of salvation. Revelation 14 also emphasizes the importance of the moral law of Elohim found in the Ten Commandments. One of these commandments is the fourth, that establishes the Sabbath day, known as Sabbath in the final stretch of history. Commandment acquires special relevance since it will be a test to determine who has the authority to be obeyed: the eternal Elohim or the deceitful Satan in his role as a forger. Chapter 14 of Revelation solemnly warns all, both believers and non-believers, about the importance of not worshiping the falsified norm of divine law. This deception will include a false Sabbath that will be enacted in the legislative assemblies of the United States, and will subsequently spread worldwide. This deceptive export model, presented as pseudo-Christian, will be part of the plan of the beasts of in Revelation 131:1. It is essential that we be alert and aware of this warning from the Creator so that we do not fall into the deception and maintain our fidelity to the true commandments of Elohim, including the Holy Zapat. Our obedience to divine truth will be crucial in these end times, and we must seek wisdom and discernment to remain firm in the faith and resist any falsification that is presented as the truth. Revelation 14:6-1. It is presented as a prophetic message that coincides in time with the decree of the false Sabbath. This warning is crucial to avoid falling into the worship of the North American image of the medieval papacy that seeks to impose a false religious cult. In the Book of Esther, which contains codes of judgment, or J. Kippur, a replica of the investigative judgment, can be observed. Divine, also known as Jan Kippur, in chapters 1 and 2 of the Book of Esther, a trial takes place in which King Ahasuerus issues a decree of death at the end of the process that bears similarities to the decree mentioned in Revelation 13. This parallelism is confirmed by the prophetic gift present in the Book of Prophets and Kings. These connections between the prophetic events presented in the Book of Revelation and the narratives of the Book of Esther invite us to reflect on the importance of understanding and discerning divine signs in historical and current events. We must be attentive to the warnings and codes of judgment that Elohim has revealed in His Word so as not to be deceived and remain firm in faith, avoiding worshiping false images or idols that are raised to separate us from the true path of salvation. These connections between the prophetic events presented in the Book of Revelation and the narratives of the Book of Esther invite us to reflect on the importance of understanding and discerning divine signs. In current events, we must be attentive to the warnings and codes of judgment that Elohim has revealed in His Word so as not to be deceived and remain firm in the faith, avoiding worshiping false images or idols that are raised to separate us from the true path of salvation. The decree of death that is presented in the Book of Esther originates for the same reasons that are set forth in Revelation 13. Both cases involve a people who keep the 10 Commandments with special emphasis on the D-Day. Rest Sapat, that is different from the day of the sun Mitre that was worshipped in Medo-Persia as occurs in the current situation. In both cases, two powers come together to execute the decree. A two-horned beast that in the context of this represents Medo-Persia and the influence of the wife beings towards Haman, who seeks the civil power headed by King Ahasuerus. These similarities are notable and powerful, reflecting the present situation where a woman Babylon Konag same in the United States, making reference to Protestantism, lines up to honor papal law with a false Sabbath codified as the mark of the beast. It is important to highlight that in this context, it is anticipated that the decree ordering the cult of this false Sabbath will be promulgated throughout the world, affecting all nations and leading to a situation of confrontation between the true cult of Elohim and the deceptive cult of the beast. Glimpse for those who obey the word of Elohim and refuse to worship the false Sabbath is difficult, and challenging tests and persecutions will come to all those who remain firm in the truth. Force will become the last resort of all false religion, as we have seen throughout history. In this sense, it is important to remember that the king of Babylon initially used attraction using music and external ostentation to induce worship of the image that he had raised. However, when these attractions did not achieve their goal, the response was violence. The devouring flames of the furnace were prepared to consume those who were similarly resisting. The papacy has exercised and will continue to exercise its power to compel men to obey it, especially in regards to the imposition of its false Sabbath. It is crucial that we maintain the same spirit that was manifested by the servants of Elohim in the conflict with paganism. Faith without giving in to pressures and threats. We need to trust in the Elohim of justice and truth and remain in obedience to His word, even if that means facing trials and persecution. It is evident that there is a worrying trend in the Adventist musical world, and it seems that orthodoxy and the distinctive characteristics of the church are fading. It is sad to note that it has fallen into a contemporary ecumenical embrace which suggests that it has lost its way and has renounced the prophetic gift that has been a fundamental part of our faith. Although this situation may seem discouraging, I firmly believe that there are still people faithful to the truth of Yahweh within the Adventist community throughout history. There have been times when Yahweh has had a faithful remnant, those who have not bowed the knee to Baal and have remained steadfast in their Christian beliefs and practices. It is important that those who remain faithful continue to fulfill their Christian duties and give back to Javu without being influenced by the worldly currents that seek to divert the church of his true purpose. However, it is true that the current situation seems to be a global submission, and it is understandable that it can be discouraging for many. It is time to reflect and reaffirm our faith in Yahweh and in his word, remembering that he is the only one who can guide his church on the right path. Although we face challenges and difficulties, let us trust that Yahweh has a plan for his people, and that despite the circumstances, he will always preserve those who are faithful to him. Let us keep our hope in him and remain firm in our faith, knowing that he is the one who guides and protects us in the midst of any adversity. It is interesting to approach the prophetic feast of the tabernacles, a significant time for those who study the prophecies and seek to understand the codes that Yahweh has revealed in his word. However, it is unfortunate to note that the business corporation of modern Adventism seems not to have access to these final codes present in the book of Esther chapter 1 verses 4 to 5. It seems that the understanding of these codes is reserved for a final remnant called workers of the 11th hour 2015 to 2030 who have been guided by Yahseph and have received the new light in this crucial time in history. It is worrying that the lack of understanding and discernment on the part of the corporate corporation of modern Adventism could leave them outside the truth revealed in these prophetic times. 133:17 In this situation, it is essential, may those who seek the truth and understanding of the prophecies be attentive and receptive to Yahweh's guidance. Although it may be challenging and confusing, let us trust that Yahweh has a plan and that the faithful remnant will be guided by him to face what is to come in these times of uncertainty and challenges. Let us remember that Yahweh is in control and that everything that happens has a purpose in his plan. Let us keep our faith firm in him and be willing to receive the light and wisdom that he wants to reveal to us in these days. Let us trust that the best is yet to come and that he will guide us in the midst of any battle we face. In this recent announcement, the incarnation of the God Pelouse Donald Trump, the same one from Revelation 9 verse 11, indicates that he is going to destroy the deep state, the mafia, the globalists, the villains, the communists, all the ists, that is to say a Messiah, who comes to save the world. A flood of Shano with supports the Son God, winding it with a script so that it is, and for me it was, and he will be president number 45. 4 plus 5 is equal to 9, and then president number 47. 4 plus 7 is equal to 11. That is the president who will complete the prophecy of the quadrant in the final 360th. Donald Trump is the president from 9 to 11. A World Cup. The current clash of the culture war in the United States can be seen as a miniature representation of the broader debate and conflict between the King of the North and the King of the South. In this analogy, republicanism is associated with the King of the North, while democratism is related to the King of the South. The United States becomes an ideological laboratory and a center of global attention due to its relevance and weight on the global prophetic scene. The events and debates that occur in this country have a great impact and significance on the international scene. The current cultural clash reflects a typical ideological confrontation between two political groups in the United States: the Republicans associated with the King of the North and the Democrats identified with the King of the South. The King of the North, represented by former President Donald Trump, was initially presented with a Christian appearance and spoke like a lamb. However, it is suggested that in a possible second term he will act and speak like a dragon, imposing blue laws that include the Sunday law. This supposed imposition would despise and reject the law of the kingdom of Yahweh. Law of Elohim. On the other hand, the King of the South, represented by the current President Jaden, would be characterized by being open and unreserved in his support for positions that contradict biblical beliefs. His positions on issues related to gender ideology are specifically mentioned that contrast with the stories of Genesis 1 to 2 that describe the divine order of creation. Symbolizing his support and commitment to the agenda of Sodom and Gomorrah, it is proposed that the current ideological confrontation in the United States has a similarity to the fight between two prophetic forces represented in the Bible. On the one hand, the King of the North, symbolized by Donald Trump. He is presented as a supposedly Christian leader who seeks to confront the opposing cultural and ideological front. It is mentioned that the mark of the beast is a diabolical attempt to correct the immorality present in the United States and its global influence using laws that aim to please Elohim God. This includes the promotion of a false Sabbath pushed by a Christianity that emphasizes morality and seeks to establish a day of family and a moral reordering as a moral reset in society. According to this interpretation, this would fulfill the prophecy of Revelation 131:1 that speaks of the formation of the image of the beast, a union of church and state similar to what happened in the Middle Ages with the papacy, and that would now be re-emerging through the King of the North represented by Donald Trump. It is highlighted that this ideological struggle also has global implications since what happens in the United States has a significant impact on the world prophetic scene. In a disturbing prophetic scenario, the Antichrist of the Old World represented by the papacy and the Antichrist of the New World personified by a political leader in the United States will come together in a shadowy pact. The United States, as a political transplant from the Old World in America, becomes the epicenter of it. Ideological confrontation between the King of the North and the King of the South, symbolized by the Republicans and Democrats respectively. This political leader of the King of the North, embodied by Donald Trump, begins his mandate, showing a Christian appearance, but in his second term reveals his true essence by imposing blue laws, including a false Sunday law that displaces the Sabbath, altering the divine principles established in the Ten Commandments. Its objective is to modify morality and reorder society under a false sense of moral restoration. On the other hand, the King of the South, represented by Jaden, adopts an anti-biblical ideology, embracing gender ideology and positioning itself in direct opposition to the divine principles of creation. His ideological flag shows his commitment to values that contradict biblical morality, such as the PR Sodom and Gomorrah apocalypse agenda. 131:1 is fulfilled when these two powers come together to form the image of the beast, establishing an alliance of church and state that pursues the imposition of the false Sabbath as a global norm. In this prophetic scenario, the warning voice of the true eternal gospel is raised, proclaiming obedience to divine law and the rejection of the mark of the beast. The cultural clash in the United States reflects the ideological confrontation between the King of the North and the King of the South, a confrontation that goes beyond national borders and acquires global significance. 8:23-25 signals the appearance of a haughty and cunning king who will seek to destroy the strong and the saints, rising against the Prince of Princes. But this apparent victory will be ephemeral, since his destiny is marked by divine intervention and will be broken without human hand. In the midst of these prophetic events, the call to the people of Yahweh is to remain firm and loyal, rejecting deceptive influences and maintaining truth and fidelity to divine principles. The prophetic signs are deployed as a warning, inviting reflection and preparation for the final events that are approaching. The prophetic fulfillment of the codes of judgment and the convergence of events take us to a crucial moment in human history. The stage is set, and the immediate future will witness the outcome of this titanic struggle between spiritual forces. It is time to be alert and prepared, because the best or the worst is yet to come. It is interesting to highlight how historical events seem to intertwine with prophetic patterns in the narrative of the presidents of the United States. Donald Trump is found in a crucial position that, according to the interpretation of the signs, could lead him to be the 47th president of the nation. The connection with the number 80 in the history of sin and the presidency is fascinating, since the re-establishment of diplomatic relations between the United States and the Vatican in 1984, the seventh kingdom of Revelation 17, begins its journey. If this pattern holds we would reach the eighth and final president who would play a significant role in healing the wound of death of the beast. These data fit with biblical prophecy, where specific events are described that would lead to the fulfillment of apocalyptic signs. Let us remain vigilant and attentive to events that may arise as we advance in history. Only time will reveal how events develop, and if the prophecies find their fulfillment in these times, it is essential that each of us maintain an attitude of discernment and search for the truth in the midst of uncertainty and diverse interpretations. Chapter 4. The hybrid president. In this chapter 1 want to address the intriguing theme of the President of the United States who, according to certain prophetic interpretations, will heal the death wound of the beast, making reference to the Vatican. According to these perspectives, the eighth president, who is Donald Trump, will play a crucial role in this event that will take place between the years 2025 and 2030. To better understand the context, it is relevant to analyze the 8 previous presidents who have been part of the history of the United States. 1. Ronald Reagan, 1981 to 1989, began the series of presidents that would trigger the prophetic pattern. 2. George H.W. Bush, 1989 to 1993, continued the presidential sequence in the 1990s. 3. William J. Clinton, 1993 to 2001, held the presidency for 2 consecutive terms. 4. George W. Bush, 2001 to 2009, his term spanned the 9/11 attacks and the war on terrorism. 5. Barack Obama, 2009 to 2017, became the first African-American president of the United States. 6. Donald Trump, 2017 to 2021, aroused great attention and controversy during his term. 7. Joe Biden, 2021 to 2025, is the current president, and his term is ongoing. 8. Donald Trump, 2025 to 2030. According to interpretation, Donald Trump will return to the presidency between 2025 and 2030 and will play a determining role in the history of sin and the healing of the wound of the beast. The future is always subject to divine intervention and human decisions, so only time will reveal the veracity of these prophetic interpretations. Let us maintain an attitude of seeking truth and wisdom without losing sight of the importance of living a life based on spiritual and moral principles that guide us towards well-being and love for our fellow human beings. President Donald Trump, as the 8th President of the United States, will play a crucial role in prophecy. A dictator, the figure of Donald Trump resembles several kings of antiquity. According to the prophecies, it is believed that he sees himself as an anointed leader in the line of the Great One. He will also exhibit characteristics of a conqueror similar to Nebuchadnezzar. He will also stand out for his power and wealth-evoking King Ahasuerus, and will exercise a religious dominion similar to that of Antiochus Epiphanes. According to my interpretation, the United States has been a nation blessed by Elohim, but if its legislature begins to invalidate divine law in 2026, will suffer serious consequences. The loss of religious freedom and eventual ruin in 2027 will be inevitable results of turning away from the ways of Elohim. We must take these prophecies seriously and prepare for the times to come. It is essential to recognize the importance of living in accordance with divine values and principles, always seeking truth and wisdom in our actions and decisions. It is crucial to remember that these interpretations are specific and may vary depending on individual beliefs and perspectives. However, this is my personal interpretation based on my biblical studies and analysis. Yes, while there are different interpretations, this is the one I have come to believe with conviction. In my interpretation, the United States is expected to enact laws that press the conscience of the people regarding their religious rights, especially by forcing the observance of Sunday instead of the seventh-day Sabbath as established by the law of Elohim. This will lead to the invalidation of divine law in the country, and that national apostasy will begin in 2026, which will result in the ruin of the nation. In 2027, the economy of the United States will collapse, and the judgments of Elohim will be felt throughout its territory, even in cities like New York that will be affected by divine judgments due to the approval of the Sunday Law. Revelation 88. Donald Trump will be the president who will implement significant changes in the laws, and in his last term, he will adopt a characteristic language of the dragon. The blue laws that represent the Sunday law will finally become a national reality in the United States and will also be promulgated worldwide by the UN. This global Sunday law will govern the entire world from the year 2027, marking the beginning of the final 42 months, as mentioned in Revelation 13 verse 5. According to my interaction, these final 42 months cover the period between 2027 and 2030. During these years, the cycle of the 6,000 years of the history of sin is expected to be fulfilled and closed according to the biblical prophecies. Surprising prophecy in fulfillment announced by this humble servant for years. The seventh kingdom of the prophetic scale of Revelation 17 is the union of the United States and the Vatican that resumed their diplomatic relations after 116 years of being interrupted. On January 10, 1984, the United States and the Vatican resumed their diplomatic relations that had been interrupted since 1868. Protestant President Ronald Reagan appointed William Wilson as his personal advisor and ambassador to the Vatican. Thus begins the prophetic fulfillment of the seventh kingdom, and the United States is being formed as the image of the surprising beast in fulfillment of the prophecy announced by this humble servant for years. The seventh kingdom of the prophetic scale of Revelation 17 is the union of the United States and the Vatican, which resumed their diplomatic relations after 116 years of being interrupted. On January 10, 1984, the United States and the Vatican resumed their diplomatic relations that had been interrupted since 1868. Protestant President Ronald Reagan appointed William Wilson as his personal advisor and ambassador to the Vatican. Thus begins the prophetic fulfillment of the seventh kingdom, and the United States is formed as the image of the beast. The first president since those relations were resumed, Ronald Reagan, was Protestant. The eighth president, who will be Donald Trump, is also Protestant, and the final prophetic pattern is fulfilled where apostate Protestantism, also represented as the false prophet, takes full control of the United States, and the blue laws will be promulgated Sunday. Laws. The president who will completely heal the death wound of the beast Vatican will be the eighth Donald Trump, who is among the seven and will return to speak and act as a dragon in the final stage of the 6,000 years of history of sin. The eight presidents: 1. Ronald Reagan, 1981 to 1989; 2. George H.W. Bush, 1989 to 1993; 3. William J. Clinton, 1993 to 2001; 4. George W. Bush, 2001 to 2009; 5. Barack Obama, 2009 to 2017; 6. Donald Trump, 2017 to 2021; 7. Joe Biden, 2021 to 2025; 8. Donald Trump, 2025 to 2030. The last president, Donald Trump, 8, will be the baddest president of all. He will believe he is doing well, but his pride, arrogance, stubbornness he has inherited from the Prince of Darkness, who is the king of arrogance. Job 41:34. Donald Trump, and the parallels with other kings, believes he has been anointed as a conqueror, as a powerful donating Nabucco and the richest of the presidents, as was King Ahasuerus, and with religious power, as he was Antiochus Epiphanes. Donald Trump fulfills the hybrid pattern of all these kings. Donald Trump puts the blue laws into effect. The blue laws, also known as Sunday laws, are laws that restrict or prohibit some or all activities on specific days, most often on Sundays in the Western world, particularly to promote the observance of a day of rest. Such laws may require purchases or prohibit the sale of certain items on specific days. Blue laws apply in parts of the United States and Canada, as well as some European countries, particularly Austria, Germany, Switzerland, and Norway, and most stores will be closed on Sundays. The Supreme Court of the United States has declared blue laws constitutional on numerous occasions, citing secular bases such as ensuring a day of rest for mail carriers, as well as protecting workers and families, while contributing to social stability and guaranteeing the free exercise of religion. The origin of blue laws also partially depends on religion, in particular the prohibition of desecration of the Sabbath in Christian churches following the first-day Sabbath tradition. Both unions and trade associations have historically supported blue law legislation. Most blue laws have been repealed in the United States, although many states prohibit the sale of automobiles, and they impose stricter restrictions on the sale of alcoholic beverages on Sundays, Donald Trump will be the 47th President of the United States without a doubt. He has no loss. Whoever opposes will be the 8th President, since diplomatic relations were resumed with the Vatican in 1980, 4-1 Reign 2 George Bush, 3 Clinton, 4 Bush Jr. 5 Obama, 6 Donald Trump, 7 Joe Biden, 8 Donald Trump. The number 80 is the number of victory and the number that marks the end of the world, whether they want to accept it or it is not revealed. Donald Trump is in charge of completely forming the image of the beast and enacting the blue laws. What awaits us with Donald Trump as president is the worst we will have. He will be the baddest president among the 8. Donald Trump, president number 47. It is interesting to note the astronomical coincidences that have been recorded on dates related to the presidency of Donald Trump and future events. The total solar eclipse that crossed the United States from coast to coast on August 21st, 2017 was considered by some as a sign that Donald Trump would be the 45th president, which finally happened on April 8, 2024. It is projected that there will be another total solar eclipse that will cross parts of Mexico, the United States, and Canada. This eclipse will be visible in several states of the United States, including Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, passing through important cities such as Dallas, Little Rock, Indianapolis, Cleveland, and Buffalo in Canada. It will be seen in the provinces of Ontario, Quebec, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, New Scotland, and Newfoundland. The path of totality will have a width 185 kilometers, 115 miles outside that strip. A partial eclipse will be seen in which it will appear that the moon will eat a piece of the sun and turn it into a crescent. The eclipse on April 8, 2024 is another astronomical sign that former president and candidate Donald Trump will win the next elections and become the 47th president of the United States. Donald Trump, his life is marked by signs of eclipses in his first term. Donald Trump governed as Cordero in his next government. He will speak and rule as a dragon and enact the blue laws, Sunday laws. Donald Trump is the two-horned president, power, two governments, the number 8 in the state, and the church. In history, we see an eye of the dynamic between Ahab and Jezebel. Ahab represents the country of the United States, and like him, there are leaders who claim to follow Jehovah God, but trust in false prophets and follow erroneous advice, even influenced by opinions of other people. On the other hand, Jezebel represents the Catholic Church and also has false prophets. Although she claims to believe in Jehovah, her trust is in wrong messages. The Catholic Church exercises a dominant influence over the state, which is a similarity to the relationship between Jezebel and the kingdom. The next president of the United States, number 47, will be the 8th president since diplomatic relations were re-established with the Vatican in 1980. For it is important to understand these historical parallels and their implications to have a clearer view of the events that could occur in the near future. Pope Francis and is the 8th Pope since the Lateran Treaty was signed in 1929, which granted the Vatican its independence and sovereignty as a state. Both the Vatican Church and the state United States are working to promote certain agendas. The Church seeks to enact Family Day through Laudato Si, while the state seeks to implement the blue laws, also known as Sunday Law. The 8th President of the United States, who will govern between 2025 and 2030, will be the last president and is expected to be re-elected to complete the remaining quadrant and thus reach 360 GR on the prophetic scale in the same way Pope Francis, and who serves from 2013 to 2030, will be the last pope and will fulfill the prophetic pattern mentioned in Revelation 17:11. The number 80 is significant at the end of the 6,000 years of the history of sin and is present at the culmination of these prophetic events. It is essential to take into account these details for a better understanding of the coming events. 1. The workers of the 11th hour 2015 to 2030 represent the final remnant and the 8th group mentioned in the New Testament as described in Matthew 20. 116.2 The 144,000 a literal group, according to the interpretation, have two periods of victory that coincide with the 8-1 from 2015 to 2022 and the other from 2023 to 2033. The Vatican occupies the 8th position and is the last kingdom revealed in Apocalypse 17:11 for the current pope. Francis I is also the 8th and last in the papal line. 5 Donald Trump will be the 8th and last president of the United States, happening in the period 2025 to 2036. The number 8 is shown as a symbol connected with the end of the world and is relevant in these prophetic contexts. Donald Trump has acquired the same character of the kings who dominated the world, and with his second term as president, number 47, his desire for power will awaken, and he will act as a dragon, imposing his will and violating the law of Elohim by enacting the Sunday law. Donald Trump, together with Pope Francis, are directed, possessed by Satan, and therefore will reflect his character in the final stage of the 6,000 years of history of sin. Both are eager to have total power. Chapter 5 The image of the beast. In Apocalypse 13:12 it is mentioned that the second beast will exercise all the authority of the first beast, the Vatican, in its presence, and will cause the earth and its inhabitants to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. This symbolizes the formation of the image of the beast, which represents an alliance between the religious power and the civil power. The image of the beast refers to a system of apostate Protestantism that will arise when the Protestant churches seek the help of the civil government to impose their dogmas and beliefs. In this scenario, the religious power will exert significant influence over the government, and the authority of the state will be used to fulfill the purposes of the church. This alliance between religious and civil power will give rise to a state of affairs in which religious laws and regulations will be promulgated and enforced by the government, which will lead to a restriction of religious freedom and the imposition of religious beliefs and practices on the population. When the observance of Sunday is imposed by the law, and the world will be enlightened regarding the obligation of the true day of rest. Then he who transgresses from Elohim to obey a precept that has no greater authority than that of Rome will thereby honor the papacy above Elohim, will pay homage to Rome and to the power imposed by the institution established by Rome, will worship the beast and its image. When men then reject the institution that Elohim declared to be the sign of his authority and honor, instead what Rome chose as a sign of their supremacy, will in fact accept the sign of submission to Rome, the mark of the beast. And only when the issue has been thus clearly exposed before men, and they have been called to choose between the commandments of Elohim and the commandments of men, will those who persevere in transgression receive the mark of the beast. At the end of the struggle, will all of Christendom be divided into two great categories: those who keep the commandments of Elohim and the faith of Yahweh, and those who they worship the beast and his image and receive his mark. Although the church and the state will unite to force all small and great, both rich and poor, as well as free and slaves, to have the mark of the beast. Revelation 13 verse 16 Vim, the people of Elohim will not have it. The prophet of Patmos saw that those who had emerged victorious from the test of the beast and his image and the number of his name were on that sea of glass, having harps of Elohim, and they sang the song of Moses and the Lamb. Revelation 15 verse 2, 3 Vm, security and peace in the conflict of the 496th to 503rd centuries. The mark of the beast in action. The mark of the beast is a crucial theme in biblical prophecies and is mentioned in several passages of the book of Revelation according to our interpretation based on the following biblical quotes: Revelation 13:15 to 16 Vm, and it was granted to give spirit to the image of the beast, so that an image of the beast spoke and killed everyone who did not worship it, and made all small and great, rich and poor, free and slaves, receive a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. Revelation 14:9 to 1 Vm. And the third angel followed it, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark on his forehead or on his hand, he will also drink of the wine of the wrath of Elohim. Revelation 14 verse 12 Vm. Here is the patience of the saints, those who keep the commandments of Elohim and the faith of Yahweh. Revelation 14, verse 1 vm 6. And behold, the Lamb was standing on Mount Zion, and with the 144,000 who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. Revelation 14, verse 7 vm, saying with a loud voice, Fear Elohim and honor him, because the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made heaven and the land, the sea and the sources of the waters. According to this interpretation, the mark of the beast does not refer to a chip or a physical vaccine, as some believe, but to a symbol of their conscious mission to the beast and its system of beliefs and commandments. Those who accept this mark will be subjected to its power and will distance themselves from the true worship of Elohim. In contrast, those who possess the seal of Elohim, that is to say that they keep his commandments and worship him as creator, will be recognized as faithful followers of divine truth in the ultimate conflict between good and evil. As described in biblical prophecies, the crucial issue will be linked to worship and loyalty to Elohim. Each individual will face the decision of whether to follow the commandments and faith of Yahweh or accept the doctrines and commandments imposed by the beast. It is important to study and reflect on these biblical passages to discern the truth in our spiritual beliefs effectively. The book of Revelation is full of references and symbolism that come from the Old Testament, especially the book of Genesis. In particular, the terms associated with the mark of the beast in Revelation 13:11-17 have its roots in key episodes of Genesis, such as the story of Cain and Abel and the account of Nebuchadnezzar and the golden image. In Genesis 41 verse 15, we see how Cain demonstrated rebellion by not obeying Elohim and offering a defective sacrifice. On the other hand, in Daniel 3:16, Nebuchadnezzar imposed a decree of death for all to worship his image, and those who refused to do so demonstrated obedience to Elohim even in the face of the threat of death. And in the context of these stories, the mark of the beast must be interpreted symbolically as a manifestation of obedience to the beast and his commandments of men. Those who accept this mark demonstrate their submission to a power that opposes Elohim and his commandments. In contrast, having the seal of Elohim on the forehead implies having the character of Elohim that is manifested through conscious obedience to his commandments. The mind and intellect are represented by the forehead, where Elohim writes his laws. And having his seal there means that the saints possess the character of Elohim revealed in his commandments and guiding their decisions. Isaiah 88 verse 16. It is important to understand these symbolic references and seek wisdom to discern the truth in biblical prophecies, recognizing that the final conflict will center on obedience to Elohim and his law versus submission to a system contrary to his principles. In the context of these stories, the mark of the beast must be interpreted symbolically as a manifestation of obedience to the beast and his commandments of men. Those who accept this mark demonstrate their submission to a power that is opposed to Elohim and his commandments. In contrast, having the seal of Elohim on the forehead implies having the character of Elohim that is manifested through conscious obedience to his commandments. The mind and intellects are represented by the forehead, where Elohim writes his laws, and having his seal there means that the saints possess the character of Elohim revealed in his commandments and guiding his decisions. Isaiah 88 verse 16. It is important to understand these symbolic references and seek wisdom to discern the truth in biblical prophecies, recognizing that the final conflict will center on obedience to Elohim and his law versus submission to a system contrary to his principles. This is how it is when we talk about the commandments of Elohim. We refer to all of them, including the fourth commandment that identifies Elohim as the creator of the heavens and the earth. Revelation 20 verse 11. This message of worshiping the creator is proclaimed by the first angel in Revelation 14 verse 7, and it is of vital importance in the last great conflict between good and evil. Revelation 12 verse 17. In the final stage of history, Satan will work so that all humanity pays homage to Rome and its apostate laws. Revelation 13 verse 4, and will have the help of the United States of America, which is represented by the second beast or the image of the beast. In its persecuting phase, Revelation 13:15 to 16, this final conflict will revolve around loyalty and worship to Elohim and his commandments versus submission and worship to a system contrary to its principles. Those who persevere in faith and obedience to Elohim will be part of those who emerge victorious from this test and will remain faithful to the end. Revelation 14:12, the image of the beast begins to form stealthily, 1984 to 2027. It is true that the image of the beast represented by the United States began to form discreetly since 1984, when diplomatic relations with the Vatican were re-established. From that moment on, both countries have ruled with as the seventh kingdom of the prophetic scale of Revelation 17, thus consolidating the image of the beast. The process of formation of this image will continue until the period between 2024 and 2027, at which time we'll promulgate the blue laws that will include the Sunday law. It is interesting to note that Pope Francis has maintained direct communication with the new president of the United States, Joe Biden, congratulating him on his victory over Donald Trump. In their conversation, they have agreed to work together with a single purpose, which is to promote peace and unity worldwide. This collaboration between the leader of the Catholic Church and the President of the United States can have significant implications in the fulfillment of the prophecy, since both represent key elements in the formation and consolidation of the image of the beast. It is important to be attentive to future events, since this can have an impact on the fulfillment of biblical prophecies related to the end of the times. It is interesting to observe how Pope Francis has proposed to work on the idea of unifying the world and promoting world peace, as mentioned in his encyclical Fratelli Tutti. This initiative seems to be in line with the historical intentions of Rome to govern the world through a false system of political and religious religion. Biden can be seen as a powerful hook to attract those who seek change and global unification. However, it is important to highlight that he acts as a puppet in this scenario and is not the one who will promulgate the laws blues that will be part of the prophetic fulfillment. Surprisingly, it is proposed that Biden will not be re-elected, and in his place Donald Trump will return to power to finish the prophetic story. This idea suggests that Trump, as president number 47, will play a crucial role in the fulfillment of the prophecies related to the end of times and the formation of the image of the beast. The prophecy is in development, and everything will soon be fulfilled. In Apocalypse 13, we are presented with a vision of two beasts acting together from 1984 to the 2027, ruling the world as the seventh prophetic kingdom. Revelation 17:10 to 1, the first beast, represented by an aquatic beast, symbolizes the papacy of the Old World Vatican. Revelation 13:1-10, the second beast, represented by a terrestrial beast, represents the United States of America. Revelation 131:1, both beasts will unite to establish a false new world order, a global system that will involve the entire world. Revelation 13:3-4, this system will have false worship as its center, where obedience to the commandments of the beast will be promoted and apostate laws will be put in place. Revelation 13:155-17, we have already been warned in prophecy about this alliance between spiritualism, Roman power, and capitalist power that will take control of the world. Conflict of the centuries, p. 1574.2, the Protestants of the United States will be the first to reach out to this alliance, and under its influence that country will march in the footsteps of Rome, trampling on the rights of conscience. Conflict of the centuries, p. 574.209-1, the message of the first angel urges us to worship the Creator of the heavens and the earth. Revelation 14 verse 7, it is crucial to have the seal of Elohim in our minds and obey his commandments. Revelation 14:1-12, recognizing Elohim as our creator. Revelation 1:47, the prophecy reveals to us that at this time the last conflict will culminate with the formation of the image of the beast and the promulgation of the blue laws. Revelation 13:15-16, the warning is clear: we must remain faithful to the truth and resist the pressures and temptations that will come to worship the beast and his image. To Revelation 14 verse 12, only those who persevere in obedience to Elohim and keep his seals will be considered victorious. Revelation 15:2-3 deciphering the enigma of the symbols in Apocalypse 13 clearly distinguishes between the mark of the beast and the number of the beast. The mark refers to the imposition of a spurious day of rest, specifically Sunday, as a form of submission and worship to the beast and his image. Revelation 3:15-16. On the other hand, the number of the beast 666 symbolizes the dependence on human wisdom and represents the system of church and state that opposes Elohim. Revelation 1:33 verse 18. In this context, the beast represents the papacy, while the image of the beast represents the United States in its union with apostate Protestantism, forming an alliance of church and state. Revelation 13 verse 1. This system will resemble the papacy and will act similarly in its persecutory phase, promoting false miracles and deceiving people. Revelation 13:12-13:16-13. It is essential to recognize the distinction between the mark of the beast and the number of the beast, since the mark represents the imposition of a false Sabbath as a symbol of submission to the beast, while the number indicates dependence on human wisdom and opposition to Elohim. Staying faithful to the truth and obeying the commandments of Elohim is essential to resist the pressures and temptations to worship the beast and his image. Revelation 14 verse 12. The mark of the beast must be understood symbolically represents conscientious obedience to the beast and his commandments of men. In contrast to the seal of Elohim, it is manifested in those who consciously obey the commandments of Elohim, recognizing and worshiping him as the Creator. Revelation 149-12-147. The reference to the forehead as the place where Elohim writes his laws. Hebrews 10:15-1 symbolizes the intellect and mind of the individual. Having the seal of Elohim on the forehead indicates that the character of the individual reflects the mind of the saints and is revealed through obedience to the commandments of Elohim. Revelation 14 verse 1, Isaiah 88 verse 16. On the other hand, the mark of the beast on the right hand is also symbolic, representing that the actions and works of those who receive this mark are affected by subordination to the beast. Revelation 13:16-17. The right hand is a symbol of actions and work. Ecclesiastes 9:10. In summary, the mark of the beast and the seal of Elohim are symbols that reflect the obedience and loyalty of people who receive the seal of Elohim, are identified by their conscious obedience to divine commandments and their recognition of Elohim as the Creator. Meanwhile, those who bear the mark of the beast obey human impositions and are subordinate to the beast in their actions and thoughts. What is the image of the beast? The story of Daniel is typological in nature, which means that it has an apocalyptic application. In this story, a political king issues a religious decree ordering the worship of an image, and those who refuse to do so, they will face death. This story has a relevance in the current apocalyptic context. The image of the beast in Revelation 13:14-15 represents the union of the church. And what is the image of the beast? The story of Daniel 3 is typological in nature, which means that it has an apocalyptic application. In this story, a political king issues a religious decree ordering the worship of an image, and those who refuse to do so will face death. This story has relevance in the current apocalyptic context. The image of the beast in Apocalypse 13:14-15 represents the union of church and state, where the apostate church, symbolized by the United States, unites with the civil power to promote the false religion of the papacy. Revelation 131:1. This has been a strategy used by the to persecute the people of Elohim, using the church to achieve their purposes through civil power. Revelation 12 verse 17, as mentioned on the Great Controversy page. Spirit of prophecy, false religion of the papacy. Revelation 131:1. This has been a strategy used by the to persecute the people of Elohim, using the church to achieve their purposes through civil power. Revelation 12 verse 17, as mentioned in the Great Controversy page. 439.425 When the Protestant churches seek the support of the civil power to impose their dogmas. In summary, the story of Daniel 3 has a prophetic application and represents the formation of a union of church and state, where the civil power will be used to impose religious dogmas similar to what happened with the king and the image in the biblical story. In the prophecy, we are warned that when the main churches of the United States unite on common points of doctrine and exert influence on the state so that their decrees are imposed and institutions, then Protestant America will have formed an image of the Roman hierarchy. Spirit of Prophecy, Volume 4, page 278. The image of the beast will be a religious ecclesiastical force that calls itself Protestant, but that will unite with the civil power of the state to coerce consciences and enforce its commandments and ecclesiastical rules. Following the example of Roman Catholicism, the first time represented by the Roman Catholic Church is an ecclesiastical body with civil power authorized to punish dissidents. The image of the beast represents another religious body that also seeks to clothe itself with a similar force. Spirit of Prophecy, Volume 4, page 278. When the churches overcome their doctrinal differences and unite on common points of faith, influencing the civil authorities to impose their rules and commandments, then they will have formed the image of the beast. Dusty Ronald Reagan, a Protestant president who began the formation of this image, until Donald Trump, who will conclude the fulfillment of the prophecy. We see how what is predicted in the sacred scriptures is being carried out in the prophecy. Reveals that the image of the beast will be definitively formed during the prophetic John Kippur of the remnant that will span the period from 2024 to 2027. During this time, apostate Protestantism will take control and power in the United States. All the different Protestant churches that observe Sunday as the Sabbath, together with their leaders, form the image of the beast and are considered daughters of the great that represents Catholicism. These Protestant churches have replicated the practices of Romanism and become a great test for the final remnant workers of the 11th hour 2015 to 2030. The staunchest enemies of the final remnant will be those who belong to apostate Protestantism. We firmly believe that the Protestant churches will become a persecuting power at the end of history, specifically during the period from 2027 to 2030. The apocalyptic prophecy warns us that the daughters of apostate Protestantism, they will obey Mother Catholicism to persecute the final remnant workers of the 11th hour 2015 to 2030. Revelation 17 verse 5. Just as the Catholic Church carried out the Papal Inquisition and caused the death of more than 50 million Christians, so the Protestant churches will persecute the final remnant and join Mother Catholicism in the attempt to exterminate the workers of the 11th hour 2015 to 2030. Revelation 12 verse 17. During the loud proclamation that will occur between 2027 and 2029, it is estimated that 10% of the faithful will be affected by the persecution. The prophecy of Ezekiel 16 verse 44 shows us a saying that says how the mother is like the daughter. Ezekiel 16 verse 44, this phrase reflects how the actions and characteristics of the mother are reflected in the daughter. In this context, it applies to the relationship between the Mother Catholic Church and the daughter Protestant churches, a typological story that illustrates the persecution that the Protestant churches will carry against the people of Elohim who keep the commandments of Elohim. Is the story of the death of John the Baptist. In this story, the daughter of Herodias dances for King Herod and, influenced by her mother, asks for the head of John the Baptist as a reward. Matthew 146:1. This shows how the daughters follow the wishes and commands of their mother. The Apocalypse also portrays this scenario where the daughters represented by the Protestant churches will obey the mother, who is the Catholic Church. In Revelation 13 verse 15, it is said that the image of the beast formed by the union between the church and the state will be allowed to inspire and kill all those who do not worship the image. Revelation 13 verse 15. This prophecy reveals that the Protestant churches, influenced by the Catholic Church, will persecute those who remain faithful to Elohim and keep his commandments. Is a reminder of how history repeats itself and how the actions of the daughters reflect the mother. The image of the beast represents a union between religious power and civil power for the purpose of persecuting the people of Elohim. In Spirit of Prophecy, Volume 4, page 278, it is warned that when the main churches of the United States unite in common doctrines and exert influence on the state to impose their decrees and institutions, then the protesting America will have formed an image of the Roman hierarchy. This means that the church's Protestants, in their desire to impose their doctrine, will join the civil power to force obedience to the commandments and rules of the church in a similar way to what the Catholic Church does. Another prophecy mentioned in the Great Controversy, page 645, warns that the Protestants of the United States will be the first to reach out to spiritualism and the Roman power. Under the influence of this triple alliance, the country will march in the footsteps of Rome, trampling on the rights of conscience. This implies that the Protestants will ally with the papacy. They will revive oppression and tyranny towards consciences by imposing a national decree that establishes a false Sabbath in the Maranatha work The Lord Comes, p. 177. 18,893 highlights how the Protestants will turn all their influence and power in favor of the papacy, giving life and vigor to the corrupt faith of Rome by reviving their tyranny and oppression over consciences through the imposition of the false Sabbath. These prophecies warn of a future alliance between apostate Protestantism and civil power imitating the actions of the Catholic Church in history, and persecuting those who remain faithful to the commandments of Elohim is a serious warning about the dangers of the union between church and state in the context of the end of times. The quotes from the events of the last days warn us about the role that the Protestant churches will play in the time of the end. It is mentioned that the imposition of Sunday observance by these churches is actually an imposition of worshiping the papacy. This shows how some Protestant churches will unite with the papal power to persecute the people of Elohim who keep the commandments, will be dominated by strong deceptions, and will unite with the civil power to carry out this persecution. However, before this happens, Elohim will call his true children who are still in these religious communities through a loud proclamation that will occur between 2027 and 2029. These true children will be called to leave these churches and join the final remnant workers of the 11th hour, 2015 to 2030, those who have understood the truths presented in this end time and have remained faithful to the commandments of Elohim. The biblical quote from Revelation 18 verse 4 urges us to leave these religious institutions to avoid being participants in their sins and receiving part of their plagues. Is a call to separate ourselves from corrupt religious structures and seek the truth and fidelity to the commandments of Elohim. Is a call to join the faithful remnant and prepare for the final events. The great answer joins with the daughters to pursue scholars of classical and apocalyptic prophecy. We recognize that at the end of the story, the will seek to unite the Catholic Church and the Church's Protestants who keep Sunday in common points of doctrine with the aim of persecuting the remnant that faithfully keeps the commandments of Elohim. Revelation 14 verse 12. History teaches us that this type of ecumenical unity, in search of the support of civil power to persecute those who oppose its teachings, is not something new. In fact, in the times of Yahweh, different Jewish sects such as the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Elotes, the Scribes, the Herodians, among others, although they had doctrinal differences, came together to seek the death of Yahweh and bring him to trial. Psalm 2:13. At the end of time, the Protestant churches will also unite with the mother, referring to the Catholic Church as revealed in Revelation 1 verse 5. The story of John the Baptist and his death typify this prophecy, where the daughter obeys the mother to ask King Herod for the head of John the Baptist. Matthew 1:41 verse 13. Throughout history, the church has sought the help of the civil power to silencing consciences and carrying out persecutions. Already occurred in the Middle Ages when the Catholic Church sought the help of the power of France to persecute and kill more than 100 million Protestant heretics during the Inquisition from 538 to 1798. This reality will be repeated as the prophet warns in the scriptures. The prophecy in Revelation 13:15 to 16 warns us about the time in which the image of the beast, formed by a union of church and state, will have power to impose the worship of the beast and his mark on the entire population. whether they are small or large, rich or poor, free or slaves, by placing a mark on their right hand or forehead. The fulfillment of this prophecy is linked to a scenario in which the main churches of the United States uniting their doctrines will exert influence on the state, so that the latter imposes its decrees and institutions. At that time, Protestant America will have formed an image of the Roman hierarchy, and the persecution against those who dissent from its teachings will come naturally. It is important to be alert to the signs of the times and understand the meaning of biblical prophecies to discern the events that will unfold in the future. The Bible urges us to remain firm in faith by obeying the commandments of Elohim and rejecting the worship imposed by human systems, to be able to face with courage and hope the challenges that will come in the last days. The remnant and the dragon. It is true that in Revelation 12 verse 17 it is mentioned that the dragon pursues the rest or remnant of the descendants of the woman. This remnant refers to those faithful followers of Elohim who remain intact and persevere in the faith, even in the midst of apostasy and destruction that can occur. That is, they are those who remain faithful to Elohim and his commandments despite adversity and trials. This concept of remnant is recurring in the scriptures and shows how Elohim has always preserved a group of people who remain loyal to him and his truth. In biblical history, we find examples of remnants, like Noah and his family in the flood, the children of Israel who remained faithful during their pilgrimage in the desert, and other groups of people who remained intact in the midst of difficult situations. In the context of the apocalypse, the remnant represents those who keep the commandments of Elohim and maintain the testimony of Yahweh, even when the world turns away from the truth and engages in apostasy and persecution. These faithful followers of Elohim are protected and guided by Elohim during the times of trial and challenge, and will finally be rewarded with eternal life. The concept of the remnant reminds us of the importance of remaining firm in faith, even in the midst of difficult times, trusting that Elohim always cares for and protects those who are faithful to him. Who is this final remnant in the apocalypse? Refers to a special group of people called the 144,000 who are identified as the faithful remnant that remain during the end times. These 144,000 are described as those who have been sealed by Elohim and have his name written on their foreheads. Revelation 7:18 are also said to be redeemed from among mankind as firstfruits to Elohim and the Lamb. Revelation 1:41 verse 5. Their number is symbolic and represents fullness and perfection of Elohim in the protection of his people. The final remnant represented by the 144,000 is characterized by two distinctive characteristics. One, they keep the commandments of Elohim. They are faithful followers of Elohim who obey his commandments and maintain an intimate relationship with him. Revelation 12:17, 141. Their obedience to the commandments of Elohim is a manifestation of their love and devotion to him too. They have the spirit of prophecy. This final remnant is identified as those who possess the spirit of prophecy. Revelation 19:10. This refers to being inspired by the Holy Spirit to understand and proclaim the truths revealed in the word of Elohim, including the prophecies regarding the final events in the end times. These faithful followers of Elohim will face the wrath and persecution of the evil powers represented by the dragon Satan, the beast, the apostate religious political system, and the false prophet, the false and deceptive religious system. These powers will unite for the purpose of persecuting and extirpating to the remnant that keeps the commandments of Elohim and has the spirit of prophecy. However, Elohim promises protection and strength to his faithful remnant, and in the end they will triumph over evil powers and will be rewarded with eternal life in the kingdom of Elohim. The story of the final remnant is a reminder to all believers of the importance of remaining faithful and obedient to Elohim, even in the midst of adversity and persecution. Who are the literal 144,144, 4000 literals as mentioned in the book of Revelation? Represent a special group of faithful followers of Elohim who will be preserved and protected during the end times. These individuals are described as a seal on the forehead, indicating that they are identified and marked as property of Elohim and protected by him. Revelation 7 verse 3, the number 144,000, is symbolic and represents the fullness and perfection of Elohim in protecting his people. 140,000 are described as those who were redeemed from among mankind as first fruits to Elohim, and the Lamb. Revelation 14 verse 4 this means that they are a special group of people who have been chosen and sealed by Elohim as a faithful testimony of his truth and justice in the midst of a world of rebellion and apostasy. These faithful followers of Elohim have an important role in the end times. They are described as giving the last message of warning to the inhabitants of the earth. Revelation 146:1. Proclaiming the truth of the gospel and calling to the true worship of Elohim are also protected from the 7 last plagues. Revelation 7:14, and remain steadfast in their faithfulness to Elohim, resisting the influence and pressure of evil and rejecting the mark of the beast and his authority. Revelation 13 verse 4. 141. These 144,000 will face times of trouble and persecution, but will be preserved by the powerful hand of Elohim and will be delivered in the second coming of Yahweh. Revelation 14:14-19. They will be part of the people of Elohim who will be redeemed and taken to the eternal kingdom. Again, president more Catholic than the Jesuit Pope himself. Jovan wins the presidency of the United States and becomes the number S president of the Seventh Kingdom. Since diplomatic relations with the Vatican were resumed, Jordan promises to work together with the Pope to expedite the New World Order and govern the world, just as the Pope says in his encyclical Fratelli Tutti. Step by step, the prophecy is meets. Revelation 13:3-4. Biden, a devout Catholic promoter of Papal Sunday, devotee of the Marian Rosary, a defender of marriage, pro-abortion. It could be said that the papacy has begun to take control of the United States with the election of Biden. The Satanists, Eddas, and Freemasons celebrate the triumph of Biden. Thus, the image of the beast is becoming more and more consolidated. As we know, the imposition of the mark of the beast will emerge from the United States of North America, a beast with horns of a lamb that speaks like a dragon. Revelation 13:11. This beast exalts the laws of Rome, giving decrees that exalt human laws. Revelation 13:15-1. Human decrees will be exalted laws made by satanic agents under the pretext of doing good and containing evil. But at the same time, the holy commandments of Elohim will be despised, and all who demonstrate their loyalty by obeying the law of Yahweh must be prepared to be arrested, brought before councils that do not have as their standard the high and holy law of Elohim. December 26, 1899. The word of Elohim explicitly declares that the divine law will be despised today by the world. Iniquity will extraordinarily prevail. The so-called Protestant world will form a coalition with the man of sin and the church, and the world will be in corrupt harmony. Here, the great crisis is approaching the world. The scriptures teach that the papacy will regain its lost supremacy 2027-2030, and that the fires of persecution will be rekindled due to the servile concessions of the world that is called Protestant GCB. April 13th, 1891, and this knowing the time that it is now time to wake up from sleep, because now our salvation is closer to us than when we believed. Romans 13:11. Arvar 1960. The image of the beast has been gradually forming since the year 1984 and will be fully formed in the year 2027 with the promulgation of the World Sunday Law. The phase of its total development will be from 2024 to 2027. At that time, as the image of the beast also has its 3.5 years for its complete development, Donald Trump, as the 47th President of the United States, and as the 8th President since the resumption of diplomatic relations with the Vatican, develops in himself, as a Protestant, a prophetic role, wherein the final part will speak and act as a dragon. Satan will fulfill with Donald Trump his purpose of subduing the world under the enactment of the long-awaited blue laws, making the Sunday law a reality at the end of human history. Chapter 6. Trump's problems. Donald and Trump's legal situation has become more complicated as he faces multiple criminal and civil trials that will overlap with next year's presidential primaries. This poses unprecedented legal and political logistical challenges as criminal defendants, including Trump, must generally be present at the courtroom. During his trials, the need to be present at the trials could require Trump to be absent from the campaign trail for weeks, which would affect his ability to campaign and participate in political events. In addition, the judges charged with overseeing his trials must also consider how to balance the public interest in having quick trials with Trump's right to campaign, which is essential to the functioning of the democratic process. This scenario raises extraordinary and unprecedented questions about how to handle this unique situation in the context of a presidential campaign. The courts will need to make decisions that balance these interests in conflict and ensure that due process of law continues to be followed while allowing the democratic process to function properly. It is important to note that Donald Trump's legal and political situation is a constantly evolving issue, and the specific details and final decisions will depend on the jurisdiction and the courts involved in each case. Donald J. Trump's legal complications are creating an unprecedented situation in the presidential campaign, entangling politics with the courts and increasing tensions over the separation of the judicial system from politics. Trump and his allies have indicated that they will try to turn their legal problems into a referendum on the criminal justice system, presenting it as a politically weaponized tool by Democrats. Trump is already facing several overlapping civil and criminal trials. In October, he faces a state trial over accusations of civil fraud in New York, another trial over accusations of defamation filed by Jan Carroll. It is scheduled to begin on January 15, 2024, the same day as the AAA caucuses, and another trial is scheduled for January 29th, in which Trump, his company, and 3 of his children are accused of using the family name to attract vulnerable people to invest in false business opportunities in civil cases. Trump has the option of not attending the trials, as he has already done in a previous lawsuit by Carroll, in which he was found responsible for sexual abuse by a jury. This situation creates complexity, unprecedented, with the need to balance Trump's legal affairs with his election campaign and the proper functioning of the judicial system. The outcome of these trials could have a significant impact on the presidential race and the public's perception of the criminal justice system. Former President Donald Trump has been indicted by a grand jury in Manhattan in a criminal case related to a secret payment of money to porn star Stormy Daniels. The indictment includes 34 counts and accuses him of falsifying business records related to the payment that was made during the last days of the 2016 presidential campaign. Believes this payment may have functioned as an illegal donation to his presidential candidacy. The investigation into Trump's role in this case has been ongoing for nearly 5 years, since the Manhattan District Attorney's Office began examining his business practices. Current District Attorney Auden Bragg took office in 2022 and raised concerns about the strength of the case. Stormy Daniels. This case marks a historic milestone, as it is the first time a former U.S. president faces criminal charges. The situation has generated widespread public attention, and its implications could be significant for Donald Trump's political future. Legal IL of Donald Trump. In Donald Trump's criminal case, M. Cohan plays a crucial role. In 2016, Cohen, who was Trump's mediator at the time, negotiated a silence agreement with porn star Storm and Daniels to prevent her story of an alleged affair with Trump from coming to light. Cohen paid $30,000 to Daniels as part of the settlement, and after the election, Trump repaid that amount to Cohen. Michael Cohen also pleaded guilty to several federal crimes in 2018, including campaign finance violations, and admitted that the hush money paid to Daniels constituted an improper donation to Trump's campaign. Karen McDougal is another figure connected to the case. She is a former Playboy model who claimed to have had an affair with Trump during the presidential campaign. McDougal also attempted to sell her story to the National Enquirer, and a $50,000 settlement was reached, but the tabloid did not publish its story, which is suspected to have been in cooperation with Trump and Cohen. The court documents also mention a payment made to a former Trump Tower janitor who claimed that Trump had a child out of wedlock. The National Enquirer paid $30,000 for the rights to his story, but later concluded that the claim was false. Donald Trump has called the criminal investigation a politically motivated witch hunt and has made threatening statements about the district attorney. Auden Bragg He has pleaded guilty to the charges brought against him. The case will continue with the exchange of documents and evidence between prosecutors and defense attorneys in the coming months. The next hearing is scheduled for December 4th, and the trial is scheduled for March 25th, 2024. After Super Tuesday, a key day in the Republican presidential primary calendar, the criminal case in New York against Donald Trump on charges of falsifying business records in connection with the cover-up of a sex scandal shortly before the 2016 election is scheduled to open in late March, about 3 weeks after the supers, in which more than a dozen states will vote on March 5th. Special counsel Jack Smith, who is leading 2 federal investigations into Trump, has asked the judge overseeing the prosecution in the criminal investigation into document hoarding confidential documents by Trump to set a trial date for the end of 2023. Trump's defense attorneys have argued that any trial in the documents case should be postponed until after the 2024 election, alleging that the intense publicity of the campaign calendar could undermine his rights. Trump has adopted a strategy of delay in legal matters, seeking to run out the clock if he can prolong his federal trial or trials should he eventually be charged in the January 6th investigation. Beyond the election of 2024, it is possible that one or another Republican will win the presidency and order the Department of Justice to drop the cases against him. In summary, the criminal case against Trump in New York will be assumed with the presidential campaign, which poses legal and logistical complications. Trump's defense lawyers are seeking to postpone the trial, and Trump has followed a delay strategy to avoid facing legal consequences before the 2024 elections. A president does not have the authority to overrule state cases. So even if Donald Trump were convicted in the case, New York criminal appeals likely still pending by Inauguration Day in 2025. If Trump were to return to office by then, the Justice Department could file constitutional challenges to delay any further legal proceedings, such as a prison sentence. While he is a sitting president, Trump's defense attorneys have argued that the trial should be postponed until after the 2024 election, as Trump is facing off in court against his 2024 rival President Biden. Argue that Biden could influence the case if he is re-elected and his administration is prosecuting him. On the other hand, prosecutors from Yahsef's team have rejected this claim and have maintained that Trump is no different from any other busy, important person who has been charged. They consider the claim of political influence to be false and appear to be aimed more at the court of public opinion than a court of law. They argue that Trump should not receive a special due to his political status. The situation is complex, and it is not yet known how it will develop in the coming months. The criminal case against Donald Trump has posed significant logistical challenges, and Special Prosecutor Yahseph has been appointed to eliminate any political influence in the investigation. So far, it has not been found evidence of political influence in the case. Judge Cannon is considering the possibility of postponing the trial and is focusing on legal issues such as the volume and complexity of classified evidence rather than the presidential campaign. Setting a trial date for the documents case is the first logistical problem, but also considering the possible accusations of 2 additional investigations into Trump's attempts to remain in power after the 2020 election. These federal and state investigations could conflict. In terms of scheduling dates, currently, there is no higher authority to act as air traffic controller to coordinate trial dates in different cases. There are also no clear rules indicating which federal or state cases should take precedence or which should go to trial first. If there are date conflicts, the situation is complex and unprecedented, and judges will have to make decisions about how to balance public interests and ensure fairness in legal processes while the presidential campaign is underway. The status of trials related to Donald Trump and the dates of the presidential campaign has posed logistical and legal challenges. One example cited is the Russia investigation led by the prosecutor Special Roberts Death 3, where charges were filed against Paul Manafort in 2 different jurisdictions, and the trials were conducted in reverse order. There are no strict rules that dictate which case should go to trial first. If there are conflicting dates, in many cases, it is judicial discretion and judges can coordinate hearing dates informally. Plus, there is the Department of Justice's 60-day rule, an unwritten rule that prosecutors should not take overt actions that could improperly influence voting during the period around a primary or general election. The situation is complex and unique, and both prosecutors and judges must balance public interests and ensure fairness in legal processes while the presidential campaign is underway. Judicial discretion and coordination between judges are tools used to address these logistical and legal challenges. Trump's legal situation is further complicated because he has hired some of the same lawyers to handle multiple investigations against him. Trump Christopher Falls mentioned during a hearing that lawyers themselves face the difficulty of preparing for different Trump-related trials. This has led to questions about the ability of lawyers to handle all cases in a timely manner. While people have the right to choose their legal representation under the Sixth Amendment, this right is not absolute. Judges could make decisions in the event that the lawyers chosen by the defendant are too busy to handle additional matters in an adequate and timely manner. In such a case, judges could require that other lawyers be hired to ensure due process and representation. Trump's legal situation remains complex and poses unprecedented logistical and legal challenges due to the overlap of the trials with the dates of the presidential campaign. The courts will have to weigh public interests and ensure a fair and equitable legal process. Amid this unique situation, the trial date for the Trump classified documents case is of great importance for the 2024 elections. If the trial is held before the election, voters will have relevant information about whether or not Trump has been convicted of the charges. Serious issues related to the deliberate withholding of national defense information and obstruction of justice. The decision on the trial date is crucial as it will affect whether Trump is held accountable in a court of law for his conduct in relation to the classified documents. If the trial is postponed and held after the election, voters will not have this information at the time of casting their vote. This situation raises questions about how the scheduling of trials can influence the democratic process and inform decision-making by voters. The decision on the trial date has significant political and legal implications and is a topic of debate and concern in the context of the presidential elections. Full transcript. G. of Bennett. Good evening and welcome to news. A federal judge today ordered that the trial in the classified documents case against former President Donald Trump begin on May 20th. 2024 Federal District Judge L. Cannon rejected the Justice Department's offer to try the case in December, as well as the former president's right to postpone it until after the 2024 elections. The trial in Florida is one of the many legal obligations facing Trump heading into the 2024 election cycle, including federal and state criminal investigations related to efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Let's now turn to former federal prosecutor Yahseph RTH, also a law professor at Cardoso Law School. Thank you for being with us. And what is your assessment of this May 2024 trial date? Which side does this schedule benefit, assuming it stays? Jessica Rot-Esco-Ferro. No one got exactly what former President Trump wanted. He wanted the trial to be postponed, was a defeat for him in that sense. But the Justice Department also didn't get exactly what he wanted. They wanted to try this case in December. I think the May 2024 date is reasonable. I think it's consistent with other similar cases, and I think just as important, the reasoning that the judge explained in her order for establishing the new schedule was legally sound, given the scope of the discovery and the legal issues that they will have to litigate regarding the use of classified information. And I say that because I think it's important in the context of this case. This judge made previous rulings in related matters after the Sea to Lake search before the charges were filed that were not legally sound, that were likely overturned by the appeals court, and that strongly suggested that she was showing preferential treatment to former President Trump. So I think the fact that the ruling was legally sound, in my opinion, is significant. The next real test, however, will be whether the judge keeps the particular defense on the timeline that she has set now, or whether she will let it slip further. Jeff Bennett. Looking at the schedule, this May date falls well into the 2024 election season. The vast majority of the state primaries will be over by that time. There will probably be a presumptive Republican nominee by that time, and it very well could be Donald Trump. How, in any case, could that affect this case? Jessica Rotwell, the judge, reserved judgment on whether at some point in the future she would take into consideration former President Trump's status as a possible future candidate. When scheduling further considerations for the trial, she said she did not have to address that now in order to establish schedule in the future, but left the door open in such a way that perhaps if he appears to be the likely candidate at that time, his attorneys could raise the question of whether the election campaign schedule made it difficult for him to have the trial as scheduled in May, or would make it difficult to seat an impartial jury. It remains to be seen whether or not she would consider those arguments for a new postponement at that time, but it is important to keep in mind that if the trial were to pass beyond the general election, there is a very real possibility that it will not happen at all, because if former President Trump were president again, he would probably order his attorney general to drop the accusation. So there is really a lot at stake for when this trial takes place. Conclusion: the problems that Donald Trump faces could end his political career, and that is what they are looking for, his staunchest enemies. What many ignore is the prophetic panorama that favors Donald Trump. In addition to all this, there are hidden forces supporting him despite all the problems he faces. All of this will serve as a bridge for the presidency, and he will have more support. They will see him as a kind of messiah. In November 2024, we will begin to see the real fulfillment of all his character in all its fullness, and we will have the 8th president of the prophetic pattern since diplomatic relations were resumed with the Vatican in 1984. Donald Trump, as the 8th president of the prophetic scale, will display the character of the dragon, and we will once again see how history repeats itself. In ancient times, the Pharaoh of Egypt was told that he was possessed, led by Satan, and inspiration confirmed that the Pharaoh was the great dragon. Ezekiel 29 verse 3. In the same way, at the end of the 6,000 years of the history of sin, we will have Donald Trump as the 47th president of the United States, possessed by Satan and as the final great dragon. Because his character of stubbornness, pride, arrogance, lust for total power, arrogance, pride, vanity, arrogance, has been inherited from the king of pride, Satan. Job 41 verse 34, Ezekiel chapter 28 from verse 13 to 15, Isaiah chapter 14 verse 12 to 14. All the signs are in favor of Donald Trump. In other words, Donald Trump does not lose in the next elections, whether they accept it or not. Donald Trump is the final president, and the prophetic pattern will be fulfilled. We are about to see the development of the most evil president that humanity will have is the president who will speak like a dragon and wallow in the laws well. He will enact the blue laws in his second term and will clearly represent the image of the beast mentioned in Revelation 13, will want to be worshipped and be considered a false messiah. Donald Trump will be the president of chaos in the world, and just as happened with Pharaoh in Egypt, his stubbornness and arrogance led him to suffer the plagues and be destroyed. The same will happen to Donald Trump. His stubbornness and arrogance will lead him to suffer the final plagues and be destroyed in the imminent second coming of Yahseph. In 2030, Donald Trump, 8th president since 1984, when diplomatic relations with the Vatican were resumed. Francis and King of the Vatican, number 8, since the Vatican became an independent state since 1929 with the Lateran Treaty. Thus, the prophecy for the end of the 6,000-year history of sin is complete, with the 2 kings as 8ths of the prophetic scale, one represented as the beast and the other represented as the image of the beast in Revelation 13, and both with many things in common. One of them, and the one that stands out, is the promulgation of the long-awaited edict to control the world in its entirety. About the author, I am Yahseph Nunner, and I want to share my calling to honor and glorify Jehovah our Elohim as the prophet of the final remnant workers of the 11th hour, 2015 to 2030. The privilege that has been granted to me is amazing, because not only have I become the rabbi of the Pan-Shade School of Prophecies, but also in the president of Heal You Health and Abundance. I also have the honor of being a prophetic pastor and writer. For over 44 years, my life has been dedicated to the deep scrutinization of the prophecies and connections of the sanctuary. I have had the immense pleasure of sharing my knowledge in more than 9,000 conferences, seminars, and workshops for more than 30 years. But my mission is not limited to the spiritual. as I have also carried out more than 4,000 brigades of health, always with the purpose of honoring and glorifying Elohim in everything I do. International knowledge as a speaker on Biblical Prophecies, Leadership, Sanctuary Connections, Books of Heaven, Malice Deek, official name for the RAC codes, and techno-scientific articles in Reform PR Health has allowed me to spread the message that has been entrusted to me. I am a fervent believer and I am committed to my faith in Jehovah Elohim. My prophetic interpretations are the result of a constant and deep search for the truth in the scriptures. My goal is to share with others the hope and purpose that I find in the study of prophecies and in my relationship with our Creator. I want to emphasize that the words and beliefs I share are not merely a product of my own interpretation, but have been revealed directly by the Holy Spirit. During my deep studies of the scriptures, throughout my constant search for truth, I have felt the divine guidance of the Eternal every step of the way. My mission as a prophet and my service in the religious and health field are rooted in the firm conviction that wisdom and knowledge come of Jehovah Elohim. Therefore, I do not suggest that you blindly believe me, but I encourage everyone to take the time to investigate and verify each revelation that I have received. The truth is found in the honest and sincere search of communion with our Creator. It is my desire to inspire others to explore the scriptures, allowing the Holy Spirit to give them a deeper and more meaningful understanding of the divine word, that each heart find the truth in its own path and experience the personal connection with Elohim, who is the source of all wisdom and revelation. Others, the hope and purpose that I find in the study of prophecies and in my relationship with our Creator. I want to emphasize that the words and beliefs I share are not merely a product of my own interpretation, but have been revealed directly by the Holy Spirit during my deep studies of the scriptures. Throughout my constant search for truth, I have felt the divine guidance of the Eternal every step of the way. My mission as a prophet and my service in the religious and health field are rooted in the firm conviction that wisdom and knowledge come from Jehovah Elohim. Therefore, I do not suggest that I am not believed blindly, but I encourage everyone to take the time to investigate and verify each revelation that I have received. The truth is found in the honest and sincere search of communion with our Creator. It is my desire to inspire others to explore the scriptures, allowing the Holy Spirit to guide them towards a deeper and more meaningful understanding of the divine word, that each heart finds the truth in its own path and experience the personal connection with Elohim, who is the source of all wisdom and revelation. Well, friends, this is all. You can go follow me on Facebook, and if you wish, you can donate through Patreon or through cryptocurrencies in the description of this video. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, God bless you.